Chapter 3023. Di Baichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. His eyes were filled with heartache. He knew too well how strong and fragile Bailey Hongzhuang was. No matter how strong she appeared in front of him, he could still see through her weakness and fear. However, he could not mention this, nor was he willing to expose Bailey Hongzhuang's pretense. He did not want to see Bailey Hongzhuang cry. It would make him deeply feel that he was useless. In the past, he secretly swore that he would not let anyone hurt Bailey Hongzhuang. However, the person who truly made Bailey Hongzhuang afraid and sad was himself. Di Baichen gradually clenched his hands under his sleeves. Because he used too much force, his knuckles had turned white. However, Di Baichen did not feel it all. His life was not up to the heavens. As long as there was a glimmer of hope, he would not give up. He definitely could not let Bailey Hongzhuang suffer such a cruel consequence. After that, Yi Lifei helped Bailey Hongzhuang and the others ask about the two kinds of medicinal herbs. However, none of his friends possessed these two kinds of medicinal herbs. These two kinds of medicinal herbs were not a lot of medicinal herbs. In addition, Penglai Island had a lot of cultivators. The proportion of alchemists was much lower than the outside world. Therefore, the amount of medicinal herbs needed was not to mention. In response, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others expressed their gratitude to Yi Lifei and prepared to leave Emerald Island. They had already obtained all the information they needed. Continuing to stay here would only be a waste of time. The thing they could not afford to waste the most now is time. When Yi Lifei saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were preparing to leave, he once again urged them to stay. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others politely declined. Young Master Di, you must be careful when you go to Demon Refining Island. I hope we will have a chance to meet again in the future, Yi Lifei said slowly. Demon Refining Island was extremely dangerous. The number of cultivators who died every day was not small. Yi Lifei had been to Demon Refining Island before. Therefore, he was very familiar with the situation there. If cultivators were not careful, they would lose their lives there. He had advised Bailey Hongzhuang and the others that with their abilities, they would be able to live well on other islands of Penglai Island. However, if they went to a place like Demon Refining Island, their survival would be uncertain. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had already made up their minds. They had to go to Demon Refining Island to improve themselves. Demon Refining Island was the fastest place to improve their cultivation. They knew that, and they knew of it now. They knew that there was no use to them now. They could only improve themselves. Gang leader Yi, will meet again. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others sat on the small boat again and left the first island they landed on. I heard that Demon Refining Island's Yuanxi is much denser than other islands. Therefore, almost all the cultivation maniacs in Penglai Island are gathered there. Xiren looked at everyone with interest. He felt that Demon Refining Island was much more powerful than Bloodground Abyss. Cultivation maniacs? Bailey Hongzhuang's red lips curled up slightly. She then smiled and nodded. This description is very appropriate. Therefore, the cultivators there are much more powerful than the cultivators on other islands. I'm afraid this is why Yi Lifei repeatedly reminded us to be careful. Chapter 3024. We have to hurry up and reach the 5th level of the Purple Realm. Our current cultivation is too dangerous. I'm really curious how my old man managed to survive when he came here alone with that kind of cultivation. Xiren held his chin with his right hand, and his eyes were full of thoughts. Although he was speechless about his old man's usual behavior, he had to admit that his old man was really capable. Sect Master 1 is a genius cultivator. My master always admires him when he talks about him. His past must be a legend, but he rarely talks about it. Di Baichen's face showed an interested expression. There were very few people that his master admired, and Sect Master 1 was one of them. Shangguan Yingying also nodded. I also think that my father is amazing. You should learn from him. With our current situation, it will take several months or even a year to reach the 5th level of the Purple Realm. I hope that the demonic abyss lives up to its name and can speed up our cultivation progress. Otherwise, a complicated light flickered in his bright, black phoenix eyes. If it were any other cultivator, they would definitely think that this kind of cultivation speed was already very fast. After reaching the purple realm, it was extremely difficult to advance even one level in a year. Being able to advance 2 levels in a year was a speed that would make people envious. However, this speed was far from enough for Bailey Hongzhuang. They had to shorten the time. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Shangguan Yingying nodded. I believe that the demonic abyss won't let us down. Since there are so many cultivation maniacs there must be a reason. Maybe our cultivation speed will greatly increase. That would be wonderful. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 took a boat to the demonic abyss island. There were 2 islands between the demonic abyss island and the Emerald Island. Although it wasn't very far, it still took a few days to reach. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 weren't as bored as before. Instead, they encountered many boats. There were big and small boats, plain, exquisite, luxurious, and so on. It was clear that the most important means of transportation on the Penglai Island was boats. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 had been keeping a low profile and had not had any conflicts with any other teams. Therefore, they had been safe and sound along the way. Under such circumstances, Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 finally arrived at Devil Refinement Island. From afar, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 were attracted by the bright red world. The sky was bright red, the island was bright red, and even the seawater seemed to be bright red. Even though there was still a certain distance between them, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could still sense the thick murderous aura and the stench of blood. Such a murderous aura could only be formed by an extremely brutal killing. However, the demonic refining abyss was a place filled with slaughter. Only such an existence could cause the entire sky to be covered in blood. Looking at this blood-red world, I feel that it's very similar to the Bloodland Abyss. If we weren't on an island, the resemblance would be even greater. Xiren smiled. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes also revealed a trace of a smile. Smelling this stench of blood, it really is somewhat familiar. Chapter 3025. Back then, that brat Beichun obtained the inheritance of the blood refining tower, but I didn't. My old man talked about it for a long time, and almost gave me the title of trash. I wonder if I can wash away my shame in the demon refining abyss this time. When Xiren's eyes suddenly lit up, if I can obtain the inheritance of the demonic refining abyss, my family's old man won't be able to nag at me like before. At the very least, I'll have more confidence in front of him. Deep Beichun glanced at Xiren indifferently. Look at you. This matter has already happened so many years ago, and you still remember it. I don't want to remember this matter, but my old man talks about it in front of me every day. I have no choice. Xiren held his forehead. Normally, it was fine, but as long as he was serious with the old man would bring up this matter, leaving him with no way to refute. It really made him helpless to the extreme, based on his understanding of his old man. If he could obtain the inheritance of the demon refining abyss this time, he would be able to completely shut the old man's mouth. Xiren, then you have to work harder this time, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. Xiren nodded. I've always been very confident in myself. Beichun, you have to be careful this time. Don't lose to me. I'm more worried about history repeating itself. After the ship docked, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 set foot on the demon refining island. At a glance, the entire island was blood red, and even the sand was blood red. The fiery red world was strangely enchanting. Stepping on the ground, it felt very soft, as if the blood had fused with the sand for who knows how many years. The air was filled with a faint smell of blood. If it was someone who came here for the first time, they would definitely be very uncomfortable, just like Shangguan Yingying, who had been frowning ever since she set foot on the demon refining island. Although she was not unfamiliar with the smell of blood, she definitely did not like it. The entire island was shrouded in this smell. It was very difficult for people to get used to it. Compared to Shangwan Yingying, Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichun, and Xiren were extremely indifferent. They had long been used to this environment. The demon refining island was not small, but the entire island could be said to be barren, without any plants. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could see the entire island at a glance. It was really a strange place. The entire island was barren, and only one building attracted the attention of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. In fact, this was the only building on the entire demonic refining island, so it was particularly shocking. Looking from afar, Bailey Hongzhuang found that the height of this pagoda was far beyond her expectations. It was dozens of stories high and could be said to be the tallest building she had ever seen. Wow, this demon refining tower looks quite shocking. Shangwan Yingying stared at the pagoda in shock. She had heard of the rumors of the Bloodground Abyss, but the Bloodground Tower only had 9 floors. This pagoda was dozens of floors high. Just the feeling of vicissitudes of life was enough to shock her. If we want to obtain the inheritance of the demon refining abyss, don't tell me we have to go through so many levels. Xiren was secretly speechless. If that was really the case, then the demon refining abyss was truly terrifying. Chapter 3026. If we really have to go through so many levels, then the cultivators who pass are really geniuses among geniuses. Xiao He looked at the shocking building in front of her and was secretly speechless. Could it be that no one has ever obtained the inheritance of the demonic abyss? As soon as she said this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but look at Di Beichun and Xiren. She really didn't know anything about history. Di Beichun shook his head. That's not the case. There are still cultivators who have obtained the inheritance, but the number is even fewer than in the Bloodground Abyss. Even if there should only be 1 or 2 people, right? Xiaobai said helplessly. More or less, Di Beichun replied. Xiaobai scratched her head, her face full of helplessness. It seems that the test of the demonic abyss is really a little abnormal. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly, not showing the slightest disappointment because of this news. We have already seen the effect of the blood aura field. It is very helpful to cultivators. The inheritance of the murderous aura field must be more powerful than the blood aura field, so it is naturally very difficult to obtain. If it was so easy to obtain, it wouldn't be so attractive. Ever since she came into contact with the blood aura field, Bailey Hongzhuang admired the power of the blood aura field. If she could obtain the murderous aura field, then once the 2 auras were combined, the effect would be even more shocking. For ordinary people, it was undoubtedly extremely difficult to fight above their level, but once they had the blood aura field or the murderous aura field, everything became much simpler. Shangwan Yingying nodded. Hongzhuang is right. It is precisely because the possibility of success is very small that once we succeed, the harvest will be extremely shocking. Since someone has already obtained the murderous aura field, we might be able to succeed. Looking at Shangwan Yingying's confident appearance, the smile and when Xiren's eyes couldn't help but deepen a little. He reached out and pulled the former into his arms. Yingying, you have to be mentally prepared before you go in. The scene inside is probably more cruel and bloody than you can imagine. Shangwan Yingying raised her eyebrows. Don't underestimate me. I wanted to go with you when you went to the Bloodground Abyss, but I didn't have the chance. Beichun brought Hongzhuang to the Bloodfield Abyss, but you refused to bring me. This time, I'll show you how powerful I am. Xiren, chuckled and tightened his grip on Shangwan Yingying's hand. Then I'll wait and see. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other and smiled. They turned and walked towards the demon refining pagoda in the center of the demon refining island. This solitary pagoda really gave everyone a lot of shock. It was only when Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 arrived in front of the pagoda that they could feel it more clearly. The pagoda was several hundred meters tall. Every single floor was much taller than an ordinary building. Moreover, there were many chains that were thicker than a human hand coiled around the pagoda. It seemed like a forbidden place, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. Looking at the pagoda before them, everyone felt as if they would be completely subdued as soon as they walked in. It was a deal with the devil, and the slightest carelessness would cause them to be completely wiped out. Chapter 30:27. Let's go in, D. Bachan said. In the next second, D. Bachan and the other three walked into the demon training tower together. As soon as they entered the demon training tower, the four of them felt an overwhelming clamor that went straight into their ears. It was a stark contrast to the silence outside. In their line of sight was a reception hall. The entire hall was abnormally spacious and bright. It was divided into various small sections, and every section was filled with people. It looked extremely busy. The appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three naturally attracted the attention of many people. However, everyone's gazes turned away after sizing them up for an instant. It was as if they were already used to it. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were secretly shocked when they saw this scene. This situation was completely different from the blood training tower. Most importantly, the bright lights here and everything in an orderly manner did not seem to be chaotic at all. It was completely different from what they had imagined. Instead, it made them feel as if they did not know where to start. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking about what to do, a graceful figure appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. The four of you should be new to the demon training tower, right? D. Bachan nodded slightly and said in a deep voice, "That's right. The four of you, please follow me to fill in your information. I will tell you the basic information and lifestyle of the demon training tower." The woman's face always had an indifferent and delicate smile, making it impossible for people to have any ill feelings towards her. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three followed behind the woman and walked to one of the many counters in the hall. There was a sign hanging there, "Newcomer Registration Area." Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were busy sizing up their surroundings and did not notice the existence of such a counter. The situation here seems to be a little different from what we imagined. I'm really curious as to how we can cultivate here. Zyron lowered his voice and said slowly. D. Bachan's eyes flashed with a deep light. You'll know later. Everything here is indeed different from the Bloodground Abyss. Bailey Hongzhuang can't help but think of the first time she and D. Bachan received the Spirit Stones. It seems that Penglai Island likes this layout very much. Although the place where they received the Spirit Stones is not as magnificent as here, the overall layout is still the same. It was precisely this kind of orderly and abnormal feeling that made them realize that all of this was not simple, causing them to not dare to act rashly. Just by looking at the scene before her, Bailey Hongzhuang was certain that everyone here had to abide by certain rules. Once the rules were broken, the consequences would be very tragic. The woman walked into the counter, her delicate face always filled with a polite smile. She reached out and handed the pen and paper to D. Bachan, saying, "Please fill in your information first." D. Bachan looked at the paper in front of him and couldn't help but frown because there was only one place to fill in, and that was cultivation. In the name column, there was only a number. As if seeing D. Bachan's confusion, the woman explained, "In our demon training island, we don't call people by their names, only their serial number. This serial number is your name here." As soon as these words came out, D. Bachan and the others understood, and the surprise in their hearts became even stronger. Chapter 30:28. Our demonic training tower is divided into a total of 5 areas. One is the living area, which is where the cultivators usually live. Everyone has their own room, but they need to pay a certain fee. The size of the room is different, and the price is also determined according to the size of the room. No matter what kind of service you need, whether it's ordering food, buying pills, weapons, or other needs, you only need to go to the counter in the center of the central area and say it. As long as you can afford it, the service you need will be sent to your room as soon as possible. When talking about other needs, the woman looked at D. Bachan and the others with a hint of frivolity. The meaning of her words couldn't be more obvious. This is the price list of the accommodation. You can take a look. D. Bachan took the price list and looked at it. Although he was prepared, he still couldn't help but be surprised. This price was really shocking. Previously, when they were on Emerald Island, the rooms they stayed in were of the highest quality. One low-grade spirit stone per day was already a high price. However, in the Demon Refining Tower, even a worst room cost 3 spirit stones per day. As for the price of a large room, it was even more expensive. This was just the cost of the room. Food and some other basic needs were not included. If all of these were added together, the cost of a day's accommodation could be said to be extremely shocking. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others naturally saw this price, and their hearts couldn't help but thump. Ever since they came to Penglai Island, they had become completely poor. Fortunately, before they left, Yi Fei gave them some spirit stones. They didn't refuse because they felt that their needs, after coming to the Demon Training Tower, might not be small. But now, looking at the price list, the help Yi Fei gave them was just a drop in the bucket. That definitely wouldn't stay on Demon Training Island for a short time. According to the consumption of so many spirit stones a day, it wouldn't be long before they used up all their savings. If they couldn't find a way to make money on Demon Training Island, then they would be forced to leave in 2 or 3 months. A strong sense of helplessness rose in the hearts of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3. If it was in the past, they had not experienced this kind of embarrassment for a long time. They did not expect that after coming to Penglai Island, they could not move an inch because of this problem. The woman's face was filled with a faint smile. Looking at the expressions of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, she said, "Have you all decided on which room to stay in? Give us 2 of the most common rooms," Di Beichun said. Based on their current situation, this was the only thing they could do. The more spiritual stones they saved, the longer they could stay on the island. Hearing Di Beichun's answer, the woman nodded, but a look of disdain flashed in the depths of her eyes. "All right, other than the residential area, the second area is where the arena matches are held. Everyone can head to the second area to participate in the arena. If you win, you will receive a certain reward. If you lose, you might lose your life. Similarly, you can also choose to place a bet. If you win, you will receive a corresponding reward," the woman continued. Chapter 3029. The third area is the living quarters for alchemists and doctors. It's relatively quiet there, and no one would dare to disturb them. Alchemists and doctors can refine pills or concoct medicines and sell them in exchange for a certain amount of spirit stones. However, we will take a commission from them. Aside from alchemists and doctors, ordinary cultivators are not allowed to enter the third area. This is the method we use to protect ourselves. The woman did not explain in detail when she spoke about this. Clearly, she did not think that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were either of the 2. Alchemists and doctors did not need to worry about money. How could they be as embarrassed as the 4 in front of them? "May I ask if we can sell pills and the like in the other areas?" Bailey Hongzhuang slowly asked. Based on their current situation, their need for spirit stones was not small. If they ran out of spirit stones in the future, they could only use this method to exchange for them. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the woman could not help but glance at Bailey Hongzhuang. The disdain in her eyes grew even stronger, but she still nodded. "Yes, as long as there's something valuable, the Devil Refining Tower can sell it on your behalf." "Thank you." Bailey Hongzhuang heaved a sigh of relief. At least this way, they would have a way to deal with it. They would not have to worry about being forced to leave due to a lack of spirit stones. The fourth area is the cultivation area. Different rooms in the cultivation area have different levels of yuan qi. If you want to quickly raise your cultivation level, cultivating in the cultivation area is a very good method. However, the price of the cultivation area is extremely high. It's much higher than the living quarters. Furthermore, it's not something that can be entered with money alone. You must reach a certain level in the Devil Refining Tower before you can enter. When the woman spoke up to this point, she glanced indifferently at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. She had no intention of introducing them further. These fellows can't even afford to stay in the most ordinary of rooms. If they want to cultivate in the cultivation area, that's a complete fantasy. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others naturally noticed the change in the woman's mood. Hence, even though they were very interested in the cultivation area, they did not ask any further. They thought that it would only make the other party laugh even more. Since that was the case, it was better to let them find out for themselves. In any case, according to the woman's words, they did not have the qualifications to head to the cultivation area for the time being. The fifth area is the trial area. Whether or not you can obtain the inheritance of the demon refining tower depends on this trial area. If you can pass through all the trials, you will be able to obtain the inheritance of the killing aura. However, this is not an easy task. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others nodded. After the woman's introduction, they now had a basic understanding of the magic tower. Compared to the simple division of the blood refining tower, the division of the demon refining tower was clearly much more detailed and had more functions than the blood refining tower. If you don't have any other questions, write down your cultivation here. You may leave after receiving a number plate. Hearing this, Di Beichin and the other three wrote down their cultivation levels on the paper one by one. However, this was not their real cultivation levels. Chapter 30:30. Thank you for the reminder. Di Beichin cupped his fists and walked up to the second floor with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. With the departure of Di Beichun and the others, another woman came to the side of the first woman, her face full of interest. Tianming, I saw that the men just now are not bad. Do they have any potential for development? Sweet Dream curled her lips. So what if they're good-looking? They're just a few poor bastards living on the second floor. It's a complete waste of time to deal with them. They can only live on the second floor? The other woman seemed to be very surprised. They don't look like it. Take a look at their cultivation. Sweet Dream handed the registration book in front of her to the woman. They're all at the 5th level of the Purple Realm. They must be newcomers to Penglai Island and came here stupidly out of curiosity. They don't understand the power of this place at all. In my opinion, it won't be long before they lose their lives here. Sweet Dream shrugged. She had seen many such cultivators before, and they were usually cannon fodder. They might not even be able to cause a single ripple on this demonic refining island before they were directly thrown out to wet the ground. Looking at the registration in front of her, the woman also showed a lack of interest. There's really nothing to pay attention to. It's more reliable to find a man with a lot of money. Unfortunately, the men with a lot of money don't look very good. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others walked to the second floor, Xiao He couldn't help but say, that woman clearly looked down on us. At first, it was fine, but when she found out that we were going to live in the most ordinary room, her attitude immediately changed. She's really a snob. Shangguan Yingying's face also showed an angry expression. Yes, the contempt in her eyes was too obvious. I've never been looked down on like this before. Xiren patted Shangguan Yingying's shoulder and smiled. Yingying, the people here are all snobs. If you didn't show your ability, it's normal for people to look down on you like this. It's good enough that she didn't directly mock us. In fact, we are indeed 4 poor fellows. Even if we add up all the spirit stones we have, we don't know how long we can stay in this residential area. Bailey Hongzhuang spread out her hands with a self-deprecating smile on her face. Now that she was dressed as a man, she didn't feel much. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but laugh. Hongzhuang, you're really calm. Just get used to it. Bailey Hongzhuang came to an understanding in her heart. Shangguan Yingying had always grown up in the Cloud Word sect since she was young, and a number of times she'd left the sect to gain experience, and tempering wasn't many. Thus, she didn't encounter many situations like this. But she was different. She'd walked through the ridicule and disdain of others all along the way, and she'd long since become accustomed to such gazes. This kind of person was also very simple. As long as you displayed a certain amount of strength, she would immediately change her original face and let you feel how fast she changed her face. There should be a lot of rich people in this devil refining tower. There aren't many people living on the second floor. Looks like we're indeed at the bottom. Di Beichun sized up the situation around him and judged. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the situation around her. She also noticed that some of the doors were open, which meant that there were no cultivators living inside. Chapter 30-31. Don't worry, I believe that we won't be staying here for long. D. Baichen's deep and charming eyes rippled with the light of a smile. He was very confident about this point. As soon as he said this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three looked at each other and smiled. As long as they had the ability, they would be able to quickly improve the situation before them. Xiren, I feel that the situation of this magic tower is different from what you told me before. Everything seems to be quite normal. Shangguan Yingying raised her eyebrows and looked at Xiren. She had always been looking forward to seeing the cruel side of the magic tower with her own eyes, because Xiren had introduced a lot of things to her in order to let her be mentally prepared. However, after coming here, she felt that the situation was completely different. The situation here is also beyond my expectations. However, when we go to the arena area, you should be able to see it, Xiren said with a faint smile. Shangguan Yingying declined to comment. Let's stay here for the time being. The density of the elemental energy in the demonic training tower is indeed higher than outside. The density of the elemental energy here is already comparable to when we were cultivating in the sect. I'm really curious as to how dense the elemental energy in the cultivation area is. Judging from the pride of that woman when she introduced the cultivation area, the density of the Yuan Qi in the cultivation area must be very high. If we can cultivate there, it will be a great help to our cultivation. Unfortunately, with our current situation, whether it is the spirit stones or the level, we don't have enough. We have to think a way to reach a high enough level and then earn enough spirit stones. As for the other things, we are not in such a hurry. The ink-black phoenix eyes rippled with a deep light. To Bailey Hongzhuang, the most important thing now was to increase her cultivation. Nothing else was that important. Tomorrow, we will go to the arena area to take a look and understand the situation at the same time. Let's have a good rest here today, Di Baichen said. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That woman gave me a manual just now. It is about life in the magic tower. Let's take a look at it later. While they were talking, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three successfully found their room. The two rooms were right next to each other, which was very convenient. Baichen, Hongzhuang, have a good rest. We'll make our move tomorrow after we're refreshed, when Xiren said. After drifting on the ship for a few days, everyone was a little tired. They just wanted to have a good rest today. Rest well, too. Closing the door, Bailey Hongzhuang also looked at the room in front of her. The room was very simple. There was only a bed inside and nothing else. However, the size of the room was much larger than Bailey Hongzhuang had imagined. It seemed that the standard of living in the demon refining tower was quite good. Even the worst room looked very good. Of course, 3 spirit stones a day was enough for one to live in a luxurious residence in the outside world. Bailey Hongzhuang sat down on the bed and flipped through the manual in her hand. Baichen, the difference between the demon refining abyss and the blood-ground abyss seems to be that they have all the inns in the blood-ground abyss in the demon refining tower. That's why the tower is so tall. Chapter 30-32. Although the blood refining tower only had a total of 9 floors, the entire blood-ground abyss was extremely large. Including the training grounds, the demon refining tower only had a few dozen floors. The difference in size between the two could be imagined. This is not surprising. The requirements to go to the blood-ground abyss are much lower. Just the threshold of cultivators above the 5th level of the Purple Realm is enough to stop many people from coming to Penglai Island. Therefore, the range of the demon refining tower is destined to be smaller than the blood refining tower. However, the people here are much stronger. Di Baichen nodded. The higher the level of the pyramid, the fewer the number of cultivators. Therefore, the range of the demon refining tower was naturally smaller. Looking at the introduction in the manual, I feel that the demon refining abyss is even more brutal than the blood-ground abyss. With our current cultivation, I'm afraid it's very dangerous here. Bailey Hongzhuang handed the manual to Di Baichen. The content of the manual was very simple. The principle was that strength was everything. As for the rest, it was useless here. The strength of a 5th level of the Purple Realm was often the same as cannon fodder here. let alone a third level of the purple realm. D. Bachin looked at the contents of the manual, and his eyes deepened. You're right. With our current cultivation, it's not suitable for us to fight with anyone. Otherwise, it'll be very troublesome. Just the fact that they were able to come here without even reaching the 5th level of the Purple Realm was enough to attract a lot of attention. According to his experience, it was never a good thing to attract attention in a place like this. It was a big trouble. In that case, won't we be in a lot of trouble? The 3 beasties stood to the side, their faces revealing a difficult expression. Bailey Hongzhuang stroked Baisher's soft fur. We've already mentally prepared ourselves for this. With our cultivation, it's difficult to move around here. However, as long as we're careful not to cause trouble, it's not a problem to cultivate here quietly. At least, the density of the elemental energy here is higher than on other islands. Let's go to the arena area tomorrow to take a look. It would be best if we could make use of the arena area to earn a certain amount of spirit stones. This way, we can also solve our urgent problem. Di Beichun reached out to hold Bailey Hongzhuang and said, Wife, you must be tired these days. Rest well. It won't be too late to think about other things in the future. Di Beichun's eyes, which were as deep as the sea, flickered with intense heartache. He could see all the hardships that Bailey Hongzhuang was suffering right now, and his heart ached even more. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. All right, let's rest together. She always believed that tomorrow would be better. No matter what kind of desperate situation she was in, she firmly believed that there was always a way out. The next day, after Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 rested for a while, they were also full of energy. All of their fatigue had disappeared without a trace. After understanding the price list of the magic training tower, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 no longer had any thoughts of ordering food. Fortunately, they still had a lot of dry rations in their Chinkoan bags. Before they earned enough spirit stones, they didn't plan on eating here for the time being. On the bottom 10 floors of the magic training tower, other than the reception hall on the 1st floor, the 2nd to 10th floors were all residential areas. The 10th to 15th floors were where the alchemists and doctors lived. The 16th floor was where the arena was. Chapter 3033. Before obtaining a certain amount of battle results, cultivators could only participate in the arena on the 16th floor. Unless they had accumulated enough battle results, they could only proceed to the 17th floor. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 had already expected this, so they were not surprised. As Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 arrived at the 16th floor, a burst of deafening shouts broke into their ears. In their line of sight, there is a huge arena in the center, surrounded by seats in the shape of steps. At this moment, 2 cultivators were locked in a fierce battle in the arena, and the surrounding spectator seats were also filled with people. At this moment, they were constantly raising their hands and cheering for the cultivators that they favored. A faint smell of blood spread out from the arena. The 2 cultivators were already injured, but they did not seem to feel the pain on their bodies. Their gazes were abnormally fierce, as if they would not stop until they killed their opponent. After seeing this scene, Shangguan Yingying's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. This situation was indeed the same as what Xiren had described to her. This competition has already started. We can't place any bets. Xiren shrugged. They came to the arena area today for no other reason than to earn spirit stones. Let's go to the spectator seats and take a look first. We don't know enough about the combat power of a 5th level Purple Realm cultivator. Watching a few more matches will be beneficial for us. Di Beichun said in a deep voice. Xiren nodded slightly. The 4 of them then found an empty seat in the spectator seats and sat down. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 sat down, a waiter came up to them and asked if they needed food and drinks. However, he was rejected by Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3. Right now, they could not even pay for the room, let alone order something here. However, the surrounding cultivators were obviously much wealthier than them. Many of the cultivators were drinking wine while watching the arena excitedly. Shangguan Yingying looked at the bright red liquid in many people's wine glasses and could not help but wonder, what are they drinking? I don't think I've ever seen such a crystal-clear red drink before. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two looked at each other. She and Di Beichun then looked away, leaving everything to Ziren to explain. Bloody Mary. Ziren lowered his voice and whispered in Shangwan Yingying's ear. To put it simply, it's human blood. But it's been processed, so it doesn't look sticky. As Ziren's voice fell, Shangwan Yingying's expression suddenly changed. She covered her mouth with her right hand and wanted to vomit, but she forcefully held it back. Some of the cultivators present also noticed Shangwan Yingying's movements. They glanced at Shangwan Yingying indifferently and labeled her as a newbie. They can actually drink human blood with such relish? Shangwan Yingying asked in disbelief. When Ziren smiled faintly. After we win the bet, you can also order a cup to try. I'm not interested in this kind of thing. Shangwan Yingying hurriedly refused. Ziren raised his eyebrows. He did not intend to force Shangwan Yingying, but the demonic abyss itself was such an existence. He believed that Shangwan Yingying would understand after staying here for a long time. Bang! Tyrannical origin energy collided in the arena. How strong was a 5th-level Purple Realm cultivator? Chapter 30-34. How powerful would a 5th-level Purple Realm cultivator be when they unleashed all of their strength? Even the entire Devil Training Tower would be destroyed under such power. However, even though the battle between the two was extremely intense, they were still isolated within the protective barrier. Just this point alone was enough to see how powerful the protective barrier was. This was only the lowest level of the arena. The cultivators in the arenas above would become more and more powerful, and the fluctuations from the battle would become more and more intense. However, the entire Devil Training Tower was not affected at all. This made Bailey Hongzhuang sigh at how amazing the Devil Training Tower was. Bang! Shocking collisions continued to erupt. Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that the battle was nearing its end. The two people in the arena had basically used all of their strength. They were only left with one last fight. Kill him! Kill him! The spectators in the stands kept shouting. Their eyes flashed with excitement. Such a bloody scene did not make them feel uncomfortable at all. On the contrary, it made them very excited. Shangwan Yingying was speechless when she saw such a perverted scene. Sure enough, the people here were all crazy. There was no moral bottom line at all. Originally, she did not think much of Ziren's introduction. She only thought that Ziren was exaggerating. However, it seemed that Ziren was not exaggerating at all. On the contrary, it was very simple. Fresh blood seemed to be the main theme here. Everyone was excited because of fresh blood. Human life became the most insignificant thing. Bailey Hongzhuang silently watched the battle in the arena. Her ink-black phoenix eyes flashed with a deep and shrewd light. The people here were different from the cultivators in the Bloody Ground Abyss. The cultivators in the Bloody Ground Abyss could only be considered not bad. However, the cultivators in the Devil Training Abyss were already geniuses among geniuses. Any cultivator who had cultivated to this level would cherish their lives very much. If they were to lose their lives just because of a competition, it would not be worth it. Therefore, she was very curious about the final result of this competition. Bang! One of the men fell heavily to the ground. Panting, he no longer had the strength to stand up. His body was already covered in blood, and there was a bloody hole in his head. Blood kept flowing out from the wound, and the strong smell of blood entered everyone's nostrils. Kill him! Kill him! The crowd was still clamoring, as if Yang's methods were the only thing that could make them feel better. However, in the end, the opponent didn't take the guy's life. Instead, he took the number plate from his body, paired the two numbers together, and threw the number plate back to the guy. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun looked at each other. It seemed that they didn't have enough understanding of the arena. Di Beichun pondered and said slowly, "That number plate should have the winning points." After this man won, he directly took away the points that belonged to his opponent. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly. "If you want to reach a higher level, you must have enough points." Even though they didn't know much, they could make a judgment based on their past experience. Chapter 30-35. For a cultivator to reach the 5th level of the Purple Realm, the amount of hard work and effort required was simply unimaginable. The higher the cultivation, the more unwilling one was to die. This result was already much better than what they had imagined. I feel that this person must have paid a heavy price, or else the opponent wouldn't have let him go so easily. Shangguan Yingying pondered. No matter what price he paid, it's not as important as his own life. Xiren said with a smile. Shangguan Yingying nodded. That's true. From the looks of it, although it's easy to get seriously injured in the Demon Training Tower's arena, it's not so easy to lose one's life. That's not bad. The worry in Xiren's eyes dissipated a little. If they wanted to obtain the qualifications to cultivate in the cultivation area, they had to participate in the arena. If it was easy to lose one's life in the arena, it would be a huge risk for them. Although they came here with the spirit of adventure, they didn't want to die in vain. If that's the case, then we have to be careful not to offend some people. Otherwise, the arena could very well be upgraded to a life and death battle. Di Beichan said with a smile. As soon as these words came out, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two's faces became serious. One had to know that in a place like the Demon Training Abyss, where everything depended on one's fists, reasoning wouldn't work at all. Conflicts between cultivators couldn't be more simple. It was possible that you didn't do anything and the other party simply didn't like you. That was also very possible. With their understanding of themselves, the possibility of not causing trouble in a place like this was close to zero. They could only try their best to be careful. Next battle, 5th level of the Purple Realm Zhao Jun against 5th level of the Purple Realm Zhang Liang. Zhao Jun's current record is 5 battles, 3 wins, and 2 losses. Zhang Liang's current record is 7 battles, 3 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw. At this time, the staff of the Demon Training Tower had already stood up to announce the situation of the 2 cultivators in the next battle. While the staff was introducing themselves, Zhao Jun and Zhang Liang slowly walked up to the arena so that the audience could better recognize them. The next 20 minutes will be the time to place your bets. You can check the odds for yourselves. After 20 minutes, the arena will officially begin. After listening to the introduction, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at the odds in the arena area. On a black rectangular board, the odds were clearly written. Zhao Jun's odds were 1-3, and Zhang Liang's odds were 1-5. According to this situation, we can only bet based on our own judgment. It's hard to tell if we can win in the end. Xiren frowned. In his current situation, the only way to earn spirit stones was to place bets. However, he only knew about the strength and battle records of the 2. He had no idea about the fighting style of the 2. It was very difficult to determine the final winner. Although the results could reflect the situation of some cultivators, it was not absolute. Some cultivators were unlucky and met very strong cultivators. Naturally, they would not be able to improve their battle results. However, some cultivators were lucky and their battle results were much better. However, once the 2 of them met, it was hard to tell whether the final result would be good or bad. Chapter 30-36. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichan naturally noticed this, and their expressions became complicated. If this method didn't work, then it wouldn't be so easy for them to spend their days in the Demon Training Tower. According to these odds, Zhao Jun should have a higher chance of winning. Unfortunately, our cultivation isn't enough, and we can't carefully distinguish the strength of their auras. We can only roughly judge from their current performance. Di Beichan said in a deep voice. Xiren nodded. In this way, the accuracy of our judgment will decrease a lot. I'm afraid there will be a winner and a loser. Then there's nothing we can do. We can only try our best to judge more accurately. Shangguan Yingying revealed a helpless expression. The current scene really left her at her wit's end. Originally, they had been living as geniuses until now. But ever since they came to Penglai Island, the situation had changed. Not only was their cultivation lower than ordinary people, but their wealth was also completely insufficient. Now, this was the only way to earn some spiritual knowledge, but the success rate couldn't be guaranteed. "Who do you bet on?" Zyron asked. While they were discussing, more than half of the betting time had passed. If they still didn't bet, then all of this would be over. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three looked at each other and said their thoughts in unison. "Zhao Jun, Zhang Liang, Zhao Jun, Zhang Liang." Hearing this result, a helpless expression appeared on the faces of the four people. The result was actually 2 against 2. This was a big problem. In my opinion, this isn't the way. I'm afraid we have to stay in the stands for a while. After we have a better understanding of the combat strength of these people, the accuracy of our bets will increase. When Zyron's brows furrowed slightly, and his dark eyes shone with a thoughtful light. Right now, they were already embarrassingly short of money, and simply did not have any more money to squander. Once they lost the bet, it would be one disaster after another. If they couldn't find a way to earn money on this demon training island, going to other islands would only be worse. Because here, as long as they stayed in the residential area, ordinary people wouldn't be able to detect their cultivation at all, so there was naturally no need to hide too much. Once they went to other islands, if they wanted to earn spirit stones, they would have to deal with other people, and it would be even more difficult to hide. "If that's the case, it'll take a lot of time," Bailey Hongzhuang said in a low voice. Time was of the essence to them. When Zyron shrugged, "But there's nothing we can do about the current situation. Why don't we do it in batches? That way, we can save some time on cultivation." "That's the only way now." Beichen nodded, when Zyron smiled faintly. "Let's be more optimistic." Watching this kind of competition will also be very beneficial for us to improve our strength. These are not the meaningless competitions that we've seen before. Then it's decided. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. In this competition, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three didn't bet. Instead, they sat quietly in the stands and watched the whole competition. At the same time, they also had a certain understanding of the strength of Zhang Liang and Zhao Jun. At least, the next time the two of them went on the stage, it would be much easier for them to judge, and the odds of winning would also increase a lot. Chapter 30-37. Under these circumstances, the accuracy of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' bets increased quite a bit. However, there were still some wins and losses, but overall, they still won more. After all, if they won, they would receive double the rewards, and if they lost, they would not need to double the rewards. As a result, their daily expenses could be solved. However, this required them to spend more time in the arena area, which was what they were most dissatisfied with. However, there was nothing they could do about it. Because Bailey Hongzhuang and the others often went to the arena area and had never participated in the arena battles, they gradually attracted the attention of many people. In the end, the four of them were labeled as poor people. There were cultivators who used this method to earn spirit stones in the demon training tower, so everyone was able to quickly determine this. However, there were not many people like this. Because they had become poor people in everyone's eyes, everyone was too lazy to pay attention to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. This saved them a lot of trouble, because everyone looked down on them. No one was willing to pay attention to them. Naturally, there were no conflicts. For this point, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were also quite helpless. They really didn't know what to say. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang and Beichen finished placing their bets and slowly walked back to the second floor of the residential area. As they walked, the two of them heard the conversation of the two people in front of them. The healing medicine in the demon training tower is too expensive and the effects are not good. It's really troublesome. Indeed, the price of medicinal pills is much higher than outside. If you aren't very rich, you won't be able to buy them often. The only thing we can afford is healing medicine. However, the effects of healing medicine are much worse than medicinal pills. If we spend all our time on healing, it's a waste of time. There's no helping it. The price of everything in the demon training tower is higher than outside. Before I came, I prepared a lot of healing pills, but now I've used them all. Thinking about it, it's really troublesome. Listening to the conversation between the two, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes couldn't help but light up as an idea suddenly sprouted in her mind. Previously, she had also thought of selling medicinal pills. However, refining medicinal pills was really time-consuming. She might as well go to the spectator area to watch the arena matches. On one hand, she would have a better understanding of the demon training tower. On the other hand, she would be able to gain experience from watching other people's battles. It would also be beneficial to her own strength. Now that she heard the conversation between the two of them, she remembered that she didn't have to sell healing pills. She only had to sell healing pills. Although healing pills and medicine were both used to treat injuries, healing pills were made by alchemists. It took a lot of time to make, but the effect was good. However, the price was also very high. Healing medicine, on the other hand, was concocted by a doctor. It took a short time, and its effects were not as good as healing pills. However, the price was correspondingly lower. However, as a godly doctor, Bailey Hongzhuang had mastered many types of healing medicine, and there were also many that had good effects. She could make healing pills with effects comparable to healing pills. The price was cheaper than medicinal pills, and the production speed was also very fast. This way, they would be able to save even more time to cultivate. Chapter 3038. Once they returned to the room, Bailey Hongzhuang impatiently told Di Beichen her idea. Di Beichen, I'm preparing to make some healing medicine and put it on sale at the counter. If the sales are good, we can save a lot of time and just focus on cultivating. Moreover, the Demon Training Tower also has quite a few heavenly treasures for sale that can help increase cultivation. However, these require a certain amount of points, and selling things can also give us a certain amount of points. Once we succeed, we can use this method to increase our cultivation as quickly as possible. Bailey Hongzhuang's bright eyes flashed with excitement and anticipation. She felt extremely helpless about their situation after coming to the Demon Training Tower. Now that they had a chance to change the situation, it was undoubtedly the best result. Hearing this, Di Beichen did not find Bailey Hongzhuang's suggestion strange at all. In fact, after hearing the conversation between the two cultivators, he had already guessed Bailey Hongzhuang's idea. In terms of ability to survive outside, Wen Ziren and Shangguan Yingying could not compare to Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang, who had a myriad of talents, would never be in a difficult situation no matter where she was. Speaking of which, they were really basking in Bailey Hongzhuang's light. Wife, this is a good suggestion. However, wouldn't this waste too much of your time? Di Beichen's black eyes were filled with deep concern. If it saved the three of them time and caused Bailey Hongzhuang to waste all of her time, it would not be worth it. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly and said with a smile, Don't worry, I can make healing medicine very quickly. It won't take as much time as refining pills. I'll start making it now and bring it to the counter to try it out later. However, I won't state my identity as a doctor, so I'm afraid that the sales will not be too good at the beginning. No need to rush, we'll just try it out. Di Beichen said. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and immediately began to get busy. When it came to making medicinal ingredients, she was very familiar with it. Her chaos ring had always been filled with many medicinal ingredients. Because the chances of her using them were very high, she was used to filling it to the brim. Every time she used some, she would fill it up as long as she had the chance. This good habit also saved her a lot of trouble. If she bought medicinal ingredients in the Demon Training Tower, the price would be several times higher than outside. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang focus on making the medicine, Di Beichen stared at it for a while before entering his cultivation. He did not want to disturb Hongzhuang's making. The three beasties stayed by Bailey Hongzhuang's side. Xiao He and Xiao Bai even directly helped Bailey Hongzhuang. Because Bai Shi's movements were not as convenient as Xiao He and Xiao Bai, it could not hold anything with its two paws, so it could only watch from the side. I think that if we continue to follow Master, we might be able to become a monster beast doctor in the future. Xiao He joked with a smile while helping to grind the medicinal ingredients. Xiao Bai nodded. That's a good idea, huh? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Xiao He and Xiao Bai, who were busy and happy, and could not help but smile. In that case, I'll have to teach you properly. If this medicine sells well, I'll give you this task after teaching you. How about it? Chapter 30-39. When it came to fighting and killing, Xiao He and Xiao Bai were the best. When it came to concocting medicinal pills, there was no problem for them to help. But if it was completely handed over to them, they still didn't have enough confidence in this kind of meticulous work. It was very likely that after making it, there would be some deviation in the effect. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled and flicked Xiao He and Xiao Bai's heads. These two little guys had followed her all the way until now, and their ability to act cute really hadn't changed at all. However, she felt that if she trained them well, these two little guys would have no problem becoming her left and right arms. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't concoct much healing medicine today. She planned to take it to the counter and try to sell it first. If it sold well, she would make more. If it didn't sell well, then she didn't need to waste too much time. Of course, in her heart, she still had enough confidence in the healing medicine she made. When Bailey Hongzhuang came to the counter, she saw a familiar figure because the woman sitting in front of the counter at the moment was the woman who received them when they first came to the demon training tower. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Sweet Dream's eyes also showed a touch of surprise. When she first saw Bailey Hongzhuang, she only felt that this man was very handsome, which made her have a good impression of him. However, after knowing that Bailey Hongzhuang was just a poor ghost, Sweet Dream had no more thoughts. It was completely difficult for a poor ghost to live on Penglai Island. If she was with such a person, then her life would be ruined. Later, she also paid attention to the situation of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. After discovering that they had been going to the arena to earn spirit stones but had never fought in the arena, Sweet Dream was even more disappointed. These were really a few poor ghosts, and they weren't very strong. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's performance in the arena was simply famous recently. Everyone treated them as a joke, but Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three didn't seem to feel anything. This made Sweet Dream even more despise them. She had seen a lot of cultivators in the demon training tower, and there were all kinds of people, but there were very few people who were completely shameless like Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. After all, to cultivate to this level, anyone would have a certain amount of pride in their heart, but the four of them didn't seem to feel this at all. If Bailey Hongzhuang knew what Sweet Dream was thinking at this moment, she would definitely feel very helpless. In fact, after they came back, they would cultivate. Although they could vaguely guess what others thought of them, they didn't know that it was to this extent. However, even if they knew it, they probably wouldn't care. If they were really at the 5th level of the Purple Realm, they would have already entered the arena to participate in the competition. However, with their current level of cultivation, once it was exposed, it would be really troublesome. Enduring humiliation was also a kind of ability. Lord D, how can I help you? Although she was extremely disappointed in Bailey Hongzhuang, Sweet Dream still showed a trace of a smile on her face. This was the rule of the demon training tower. Chapter 30-40. As soon as Bailey Hongzhuang finished speaking, Sweet Dream's expression froze. She stared at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock, wondering if she had misheard. What did you say? She felt that Bailey Hongzhuang had only come to the counter to buy some necessities. The four of them had stayed on the 2nd floor for some time now, but apart from the room fees, they had not spent anything else. She was certain that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had been eating dry rations during this period of time. However, it had been so long, so they should have pretty much run out. Apart from Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, she had not seen anyone else who could live so shabbily on Demonic Refinement Island. However, she had just heard Bailey Hongzhuang say that she wanted to sell healing medicine. I have some healing medicine here. Please help me sell it. Bailey Hongzhuang took out 10 white porcelain bottles and placed them on the counter, directly using her actions to explain her intentions. Sweet Dream looked at the white porcelain bottles before her and realized that she had not misheard. However, she could not help but frown. You're not a doctor. No one will believe your healing medicine. You haven't spent much on demonic refinement island recently. Could it be that you need to use this method to survive? Sweet Dream found this to be rather unbelievable. She simply could not imagine just how poor Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were. Now, they actually wanted to exchange their own healing medicine for spiritual stones. If that was the case, they might as well just leave. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Sweet Dream indifferently. I don't think I need to explain my situation to you. She knew very well that Sweet Dream looked down on them, so she had no intention of explaining. This was because even if she did, Sweet Dream would only think that she was putting up a strong front. Besides, they could only be considered acquaintances at most. There was no need to explain. Sensing the coldness in Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Sweet Dream was even more certain that her judgment was correct. Every cultivator had their own pride. Now that she had exposed it, Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely be very unhappy. She immediately stopped asking. Our magic training tower's best-selling healing medicines are all made by alchemists and healers. You're only living on the second floor. I can help you sell the healing medicines, but I'm afraid my price won't be high, Sweet Dream slowly said. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Help me set a suitable price. Let me know when it's sold. If anyone else needs it, you can also let me know. All right. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang agree so readily, Sweet Dream looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with pity. She never thought that she would end up like this after coming to the Demon Training Tower. How pitiful. After explaining these matters, Bailey Hongzhuang turned around and returned to her residence. Master, I think I saw pity in that woman's eyes. Xiaohei could not help but ask. That's enough. Xiaobai was speechless. Does that woman think she's the savior of the world? She actually took pity on us? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. In the eyes of many people, we are indeed worthy of pity. If she wants to pity us, then let her. It has nothing to do with us anyway. Chapter 3041. She felt that she was choosing someone she could rely on among the many cultivators. Little did she know that in the eyes of many more people, she was merely a commodity to be chosen. Women like her had always been pitiful. The most pitiful thing was that she had fallen into such a situation without even realizing it. After returning to their room, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun entered a state of cultivation together. The two of them entered the chaos ring directly. Cultivating in the desert world was the best way to improve. Now that their powers have increased, they have almost explored the entire desert world. Thinking back, when they had first arrived, they had only felt that the desert world was incomparably vast. After spending so much time exploring, they had changed from being ignorant to understanding. The desert world wasn't endless. It had an end as well. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun had killed more and more monstrous beasts in the desert world. In the process of such battles, their powers had also continued to increase. After all, they could only fight with all their might against monstrous beasts with coarse skin, thick flesh, and boundless strength. Under such imperceptible influence, their powers had gradually increased. It was not only Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun. The three demonic beast powers had also increased. There seems to be a city wall in front. Standing in the middle of the desert world, Bailey Hongzhuang stared at the towering city wall in the distance. A trace of astonishment flashed across her pitch-black phoenix eyes. All this time, they had only seen boundless yellow sand in the desert world. The entire place was empty, and there was nothing but sand dunes. However, at this moment, in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun's eyes, a row of city walls had clearly appeared. The appearance of these city walls was extremely sudden. It was as if they had always been here. Di Beichun stopped in his tracks and looked in the direction that Bailey Hongzhuang was pointing. A trace of astonishment flashed across his handsome eyes. It really is a city wall. Why would a city wall suddenly appear here? That's strange. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered. So far, they had stayed in the desert world for a long time, but they had only seen monsters and had never seen humans. So what was the situation with the city wall now? Let's go take a look, Di Beichun said in a deep voice. Now, the demonic beasts in the desert world were no longer a threat to them. The city wall in front of them was strange. They had to take a look to be sure. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, her pretty face showing a trace of vigilance and seriousness, but her eyes flashed with a trace of expectation. From the moment they entered the desert world, they had been exploring. The appearance of new things meant that there might be new opportunities. She was an adventurer, so she was full of anticipation for such novel things. The three beasts followed behind Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun and were equally curious about the situation. Finally, the two humans and three beasts successfully arrived at the city wall. The city wall was 50 meters high. Standing in front of the city wall, it seemed as if the sky was blocked. The grayish-yellow city wall exuded an ancient and heavy aura. The densely packed patterns on it were like spells, revealing a mysterious power. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the complicated patterns in front of her and vaguely felt that these patterns had some meaning. It was just that they could not understand it. Chapter 3042. Di Beichun nodded. His expression was equally complicated as he said, "This city wall seems to be a forbidden door. These symbols seem to be filled with a mysterious power as well." Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun looked at each other. It seems that both of them had the same idea. The symbols and the existence of the city wall must have some sort of meaning. It was just that the two of them had no way of determining what it was. I wonder what's on the other side of the city wall. It feels so mysterious. Baisher looked at the gate of the city wall. It was as if pushing open the thick and heavy gate would lead to another world. Xiao Hei's eyes darted around as she said, "Master, why don't we open the gate of the city wall and take a look inside?" All this while, they had been exploring the world within the Chaos Ring. They believed that there could be something even more mysterious waiting for them on the other side of the city wall. Bailey Hongzhuang carefully studied the city wall and nodded, "All right." Since they could not determine the meaning of the city wall's existence, they should walk to the other side of the city wall and take a look. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun slowly walked towards the gate of the city wall. Compared to the thick and heavy city gate, their figures appeared extremely tiny. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun gradually exerted more force in their hands. They suddenly realized that the weight of the city gate had far exceeded their expectations. They continued to exert more force in their hands, but the city gate only moved slightly. It was only after the two had exerted all their strength that they slowly pushed the city gate open. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The city gate had clearly not been open for a very long time. Once it was pushed open, a cloud of dust flew into the air and landed on Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun's bodies. The two of them could not help but cough. Once Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun had opened the city gate, they were immediately shocked by the sight before them. In their line of sight was a vast and boundless ocean. The entire world seemed to be filled with a deep blue color. It was a stark contrast to the boundless yellow sand from before. How can this be? Bailey Hongzhuang stared dazedly at the sight before her. Her mind could not wrap itself around this. They had just been in a desert world. How could they have entered the ocean in the blink of an eye? Di Beichun and Di Beichun immediately turned around to look at the city wall behind them, only to realize that the city wall had disappeared without a trace. It was as if it had never existed in the first place. Behind him was the same blue ocean. At this moment, the three beasts were completely dumbfounded. The world had changed too quickly, making them wonder if they were dreaming. However, a huge wave hit them directly, and they were directly slapped into the sea. This clearly told them that everything in front of them was real and not an illusion. After spitting out a mouthful of seawater, the shock in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes did not dissipate. There's actually another world behind the city wall. Does this mean that we'll have to train in this ocean next? Di Beichun took out a boat and pulled Bailey Hongzhuang onto the boat. He said, "I'm afraid so. We've already adapted to everything in the desert world. The monsters there are no longer much of a threat to us. That's why we came here. It seems that we still need to explore this world properly. Chapter 3043. My dear wife, this chaos ring of yours is truly a priceless treasure. It's constantly improving according to our situation. This way, we'll have even better opportunities to train. Baichin quickly understood the key, and his deep eyes suddenly bloomed with a bright light. Ever since he found out that Bailey Hongzhuang had the Chaos Ring, he felt more and more that the Chaos Ring was magical. Originally, the desert world allowed them to have 3 times more time to cultivate, which was already a great help. Moreover, they could continuously improve themselves by fighting monsters. Now that they didn't have much improvement in the desert world, they came to a brand new world. If his judgment was correct, the monsters in this oceanic world were probably much stronger than the monsters in the desert world. This was using this kind of pressure to force them to grow. Although the process was very difficult, once they persevered, the effect of improvement was very obvious. Hearing Baichin's words, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood and was immediately surprised. In that case, we'll have to train in this oceanic world in the future. Thinking back to when she first transmigrated because of the Chaos Ring, she felt very depressed. However, the more she found out about the magic of the Chaos Ring, the more she understood why there was an energy storm when she dripped her blood on it. It was because the power of the Chaos Ring was really too heaven-defying. Divine artifacts were very rare in this world, and the Chaos Ring was definitely a divine artifact among divine artifacts. At this moment, the 3 beasts were already drenched by the waves. Their furry fur was drooping on their bodies, and they were no longer as mighty and cute as before. At this moment, they were constantly shaking their heads, trying to shake off the water droplets on their bodies. Master, this oceanic world should be very dangerous. Thinking back to when we first arrived in the desert world, it was also very dangerous. When they first came to the desert world, they almost lost their lives. It still remembered that scene clearly. As soon as Xiao Bai's voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang's ship was violently attacked and shook. Bailey Hongzhuang and Baichin looked at each other, then looked at Xiao Bai at the side. You really jinxed it. Xiao Bai clearly knew that it had said something wrong and couldn't help but shut its mouth. It didn't expect the good things to not come true, but the bad things to come true. It had only said it casually, and the attack immediately came. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and Baichin's eyes flashed with a strong fighting spirit. They had to hide their cultivation in the Devil Training Tower, so they didn't have the chance to fight. In the long run, this wasn't a good thing for them. If they could find an opponent in the oceanic world, it would undoubtedly be extremely good for them. All of their improvements could be reflected through battle. At the same time, battle could also stimulate their potential and promote their improvement. Just like that, Bailey Hongzhuang and Baichin cultivated in the Chaos Ring for 1 day, and went to the spectator area to watch the competition and place their bets on the arena. Every time they placed a bet, they couldn't guarantee that they would win. However, at the end of the day, they would always win a little more. At the very least, there was no problem in maintaining their daily expenses. Chapter 3044. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 used spirit stones, they discovered the wonders of spirit stones. The spirit stones were filled with extremely rich and pure spirit energy. Although some impurities had to be removed during absorption, it was much faster than absorbing spirit energy from the air. If they used spirit stones for an entire day of cultivation, their cultivation speed would be 3 or even 4 times faster than before. In addition, the density of spirit energy in the Devil Training Tower was much higher than the outside world, so their cultivation speed would also be greatly increased. However, their biggest problem was that they did not have spirit stones to support their cultivation. Therefore, even if they obtained a certain amount of spirit stones through betting in the arena, they still had to be very frugal. This was because the spirit stones in the arena were still not enough to support their cultivation. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen cultivated in the ocean world. Although they were in a state of battle for a long time, the time in the ocean world was originally longer than the outside world. Therefore, the amount of spirit stones they consumed during cultivation was much more than Xiren and Shangguanying. Under such circumstances, they could only save spirit stones. It was impossible for them to use spirit stones to exchange for a more comfortable residence. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang handed the healing medicine to the counter, she had not received any news from the counter. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but go to the counter again. The woman in front of the counter was still Sweet Dream. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang come, Sweet Dream's face revealed a look of understanding. Obviously, she had already guessed the purpose of Bailey Hongzhuang's visit. Young Master D, I have already helped you put your healing medicine up for sale. However, no one is interested. I advise you to take it back. I'm afraid this healing medicine won't be able to be sold. Sweet Dream went straight to the point. From the moment Bailey Hongzhuang handed the healing medicine to her to sell, she had already expected this situation. Until now, half a month had passed, but no one was interested at all. For a moment, she felt a little ridiculous in her heart. Listening to Sweet Dream's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's brows furrowed silently. She didn't expect that the situation would be like this. She had never succeeded. She had enough confidence in the effects of her healing medicine. She believed that as long as someone bought a set of healing medicine, they would discover its benefits. Unfortunately, the healing medicine that she put out now was obviously not something that anyone would want. However, this was understandable. After all, she was only an ordinary cultivator who lived on the second floor and was not a doctor. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't think that a poor person like her would have any good treasures on her. Without waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang to speak, Sweet Dream had already taken out the 10 bottles of healing pills that Bailey Hongzhuang had entrusted to her. It was obvious that she had no interest in continuing to help Bailey Hongzhuang sell medicinal pills. Take it. As soon as she finished speaking, Sweet Dream no longer looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. She only lowered her head and minded her own business. Seeing Sweet Dream's actions, Bailey Hongzhuang did not take it to heart and continued, I'll have to trouble you to continue to help me sell these medicinal pills. But before Bailey Hongzhuang could finish speaking, Sweet Dream had already frowned. A thick sense of impatience appeared on her face. Chapter 3045. Tianming had become more and more impatient with Bailey Hongzhuang. The little bit of good impression she had of Bailey Hongzhuang had completely disappeared when she knew that she was a poor ghost. At this moment, seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was so poor that she could only use her own things to exchange for spirit stones, she felt even more disgusted. She simply could not understand. Since Bailey Hongzhuang was already so poor, why did she continue to stay in the Devil Training Tower? She was simply seeking her own death. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw Sweet Dream's attitude, a trace of displeasure flashed through her inky black phoenix eyes. Her voice also became colder. Miss, selling things on consignment is a right that all cultivators in the Devil Training Tower enjoy. I'm willing to sell things here, so you don't have the right to refuse, do you? A cold and icy voice slowly came out of Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth. Her dark eyes flashed with a cold light, without the slightest bit of warmth. Sweet Dream raised her head and noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's cold gaze. Her heart couldn't help but tremble as a chill rose from the bottom of her feet. She had never seen Bailey Hongzhuang like this before. Before, Bailey Hongzhuang had always been very easy to talk to. Even if her words were filled with disdain, Bailey Hongzhuang had never revealed any dissatisfaction. But now, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression made her understand that it wasn't that she couldn't get angry. At the very least, her actions today had angered her. Help me write down that the first 3 sets of medicine will be free. If they still can't be sold after a week, I'll naturally take them away. Bailey Hongzhuang coldly glanced at Sweet Dream, then turned around and left the counter. She had no interest in others relying on their master's power, but Sweet Dream's actions had already touched her bottom line. She had originally planned to ignore it, but she never thought that Sweet Dream would push her luck. Naturally, she wouldn't be polite. Sweet Dream stared blankly at Bailey Hongzhuang's back as she left. Her mind was still replaying the scene of Bailey Hongzhuang's soul-stirring gaze. Her heart was filled with shock. She suddenly felt that her previous opinion of Bailey Hongzhuang might have been wrong. That gaze was truly frightening. Even from experts stronger than Bailey Hongzhuang, she had never felt such a gaze. She swallowed a mouthful of saliva, then announced Bailey Hongzhuang's request. Although she still believed that Bailey Hongzhuang's medicine could not be sold, Sweet Dream was truly worried that if she didn't do as Bailey Hongzhuang said, Bailey Hongzhuang might take her life. "Master, why is no one interested in your healing medicine?" A look of disbelief flashed across Xiao Hei's face. The medicine that its master concocted had always been treasures that everyone would fight over. Who would have thought that no one would show any interest in the Devil Training Tower? The drop in its heart was really not ordinary. This place is not like the outside world. No one knows Master's true identity, so it's not strange for this to happen. Xiao Bai's eyes turned, then looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, "Master, why don't you go directly to the doctor's residence?" Chapter 3046. It's true that I can live there, but Beichun and the rest can't go with me. Since that's the case, I might as well stay here. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged her shoulders. She had thought about this before, but the four of them were a team. How could she live upstairs by herself? Moreover, even if she lived on the second floor, it wouldn't affect her at all. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai immediately understood. They were only thinking about Bailey Hongzhuang's identity and forgot that normal cultivators were not allowed to enter the doctor's residential area. "Master is right. Why don't we just stay here?" Xiao Hei nodded. "I believe that as long as those people use Master's healing medicine, there will be people interested in it very soon." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and patted Xiao Hei's little head. This girl was a complete chatterbox, but she was also a source of joy for her. As long as the healing medicine is effective, people will notice it sooner or later. It's just that our performance in the arena has been very famous recently. Everyone thinks that a poor person like me can't take out anything good. Bailey Hongzhuang joked. In fact, ever since she transmigrated to the present, other than the time when she was in the general's residence when she was poor, she had always been in a state of wealth. The current situation made her feel as if she had returned to the past. Xiao Yihan was in a very bad mood today. He had just participated in an arena competition and suffered some injuries. However, for some reason, whether it was healing medicine or healing elixirs, there were very few on sale recently. Moreover, they were usually sold out the moment they were released. He didn't notice that the healing elixirs and healing elixirs in his Qingquan bag were all gone. He went to the counter and asked around, but found that there were no elixirs and healing elixirs for sale. This made him feel very helpless. He still had an appointment with the others for a single elimination tournament tomorrow. If he couldn't recover from his injuries as soon as possible, he would definitely be at a disadvantage in the single elimination tournament tomorrow. This was something he didn't want to see. Unfortunately, he asked the person at the counter to ask the pharmacists and doctors, but there was no corresponding healing medicine for sale today. Why is there no healing medicine today? Let me ask again. I'd rather buy it at a high price. Xiao Yihan said angrily. Hearing Xiao Yihan's words, the woman at the counter could not help but shudder. Xiao Yihan was a cultivator from the 15th floor's arena area. His battle record had always been outstanding, and there was basically no one who dared to offend him. She was just an ordinary worker in the magic training tower. She couldn't bear Xiao Yihan's anger. "Young Master Xiao, I've already gone over there to inquire." However, the alchemists and doctors did not offer any healing medicine today. "There is nothing I can do," the woman said gently, forcing a smile on her face. However, Xiao Yihan completely ignored the woman's smile. He slammed his hand on the table and said angrily, "I don't care about that. It's not like I don't have money. I can afford any price. You have to get the medicine for me. Otherwise, you'll have to deal with the consequences." Chapter 3047. Hearing Xiao Yihan's roar, the woman couldn't help but tremble. Panic quickly surged onto her face, and her eyes were filled with deep fear. Young Master Xiao, I really have no choice. The more the woman spoke, the softer her voice became, and the less confident she became. She was really worried that Xiao Yihan would take her life in a fit of anger. Just then, the woman suddenly discovered that there was news of a cultivator selling healing medicine on the second floor. Her eyes instantly lit up, and her heart was filled with excitement. Previously, she didn't take this news to heart at all. Now that she saw this news, it was as if she saw a life-saving straw. She immediately said to Xiao Yihan, "Young Master Xiao, there are no healing medicines for sale in the alchemist and doctor area today. However, there's a cultivator selling healing medicines on the second floor. I wonder if this healing medicine is okay?" The woman looked at Xiao Yihan tentatively. Although she also thought that the healing medicines sold by the cultivator on the second floor wouldn't have much effect, it was better than nothing. She only hoped that this news would be able to reduce Xiao Yihan's anger by a little. Hearing the woman's words, Xiao Yihan couldn't help but frown. This news still made him very dissatisfied, but at least it was better than nothing. The healing medicine sold by the cultivator on the second floor? Xiao Yihan raised his eyebrows and asked. His words were obviously filled with suspicion. The woman nodded. There are a total of 10 portions of healing medicine. The first 3 portions are free, but a cultivator has already taken one of them. There are 9 remaining, and the price is also very low. Am I the kind of person who cares about the price? Xiao Yihan asked back. No, that's not what I meant. The woman waved her hands and said, This is the healing medicine sold by the cultivator on the second floor, and the price is so low. One look, and you can tell that the effect isn't too good. Xiao Yihan said slowly. Most of the cultivators on the second floor were poor people. It was obvious what kind of things these people could take out just by thinking about it. However, Xiao Yihan also understood that there were really no other healing medicines for sale. He was left with this choice. It was better than nothing. Then bring me the remaining 9 bottles of healing medicine. I'll buy them. Hearing Xiao Yihan's words, the woman felt as if she had been pardoned, and joy quickly appeared on her face. Young Master Xiao, please wait for a moment. I will immediately bring the medicine over and send it to your room. Xiao Yihan nodded. The anger on his face still hadn't dissipated. He turned around and went back into the house. At the very least, the effect of the healing medicine was much better than the wound healing itself. Bailey Hongzhuang was cultivating in her room when suddenly there was a knock on the door. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but frown. Ever since she had started living here, more than a month had passed. Other than Xiren and Wenxinya, no one else had knocked on her door. At this time, Wan and Xiren should be placing their bets in the arena. As soon as she opened the door, Bailey Hongzhuang saw Sweet Dream standing outside. Chapter 3048. Hearing Sweet Dream's words, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, took the spirit stones, and said, "Thank you." However, in the next second, without waiting for Sweet Dream to continue speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang directly closed the door. Sweet Dream stared blankly at the closed door in front of her, and the smile on her face suddenly froze. Knock, knock. The knocking on the door sounded again, and Sweet Dream's face was full of unwillingness. According to her thoughts, the success of Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine had a lot to do with her. At least, it could be considered as solving Bailey Hongzhuang's urgent problem. But Bailey Hongzhuang actually just said a perfunctory thank you. She didn't see any gratitude at all. Bailey Hongzhuang opened the door and looked coldly at Sweet Dream in front of her, saying, "Is there anything else? Is there anything else?" Sweet Dream was startled. Her original anger and dissatisfaction were unable to flare up after seeing such a cold Bailey Hongzhuang. I just want to remind you that your healing medicine was bought by Xiao Yihan from the 15 floors arena area. He is quite famous in our demon training tower. If the effect of your healing medicine is not good enough, then you have to be careful when you see him in the future. It's best if you don't sell again. After knowing that the person who bought the healing medicine was actually Xiao Han, Sweet Dream was also shocked. She originally thought that the person who bought the healing medicine was at most a cultivator on the 11th floor. After all, with Xiao Han's status and wealth, he wouldn't buy this kind of healing medicine. He completely looked down on it. This made Sweet Dream a little worried. Xiao Han was not a kind person. If the healing medicine's effect was poor and caused Xiao Han to be dissatisfied, then Bailey Hongzhuang shouldn't sell healing medicine in the future. Otherwise, if Xiao Han made a move, the one who would be unlucky would be Bailey Hongzhuang. Hearing Sweet Dream's words, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood. She did not expect that these healing medicines would all be bought by one person. However, the higher the status of the other party, the better it would be. She believed that as long as the other party knew the effects of her healing medicine, he would definitely be very interested in it. For Bailey Hongzhuang, the price of 5 spirit stones for a healing medicine was extremely low. But she didn't have any reputation, so it was very difficult for her to raise the price. That's why when she first sold it, the price was so low. Then I'll have to trouble you not to reveal my card number, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Hearing this, the smile in Sweet Dream's eyes deepened. This Bailey Hongzhuang was not ungrateful. At least she knew the importance of what she said. When we sell things, we will only say which floor the seller is from and determine the price based on that. We will not reveal the seller's specific information. You can rest assured about this. Oh, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was still indifferent, and there was no change in her expression. If there is someone who wants to buy my healing medicine in the future, please help me tell them that the price will be increased by 10 times. Bailey Hongzhuang did not think that this price was high. She also noticed that the healing medicines sold by the other doctors in the Demon Training Tower were mostly priced between 30 to 40 spirit stones, while the healing pills were priced between 80 to 100 spirit stones. Chapter 3049. Of course, this was also due to the high price of the Devil Training Tower. If it was any other place, the healing medicine would definitely not be sold at this price. However, at the same time, the price of medicinal ingredients in the Devil Training Tower was also extremely high. Moreover, the commission for the items sold in the Devil Training Tower was simply too high. A 40% commission was definitely impossible in the outside world. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Sweet Dream could not help but widen her eyes. There was only one thought in her mind. Bailey Hongzhuang was crazy. 10 times the price? Are you sure? Sweet Dream exclaimed. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. No, if someone wants to buy it again, just tell them that. She believed that Xiao Han should be someone who knew the value of the medicine. As long as he used this healing medicine, he would discover that its effects were far better than ordinary healing medicine. Moreover, overall, the price of this healing medicine was more worth it than buying healing pills. No one would complain about having too many spirit stones, and the rich people were the same. You're simply dreaming. Sweet Dream looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in disbelief. Her face was faintly tinged with anger. She felt that Bailey Hongzhuang simply did not know what was good for her. You should be thanking the heavens and earth that these healing medicine can be sold. If you still want to use this to make a large sum of money, I can only tell you that it's simply impossible. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged, completely ignoring Sweet Dream's anger. This woman had looked down on her from the beginning. It was normal for her to say such words at this moment. Whether it's possible or not is not up to you to decide. I said that if someone comes to buy it again, you should tell them that. You should understand this point, right? Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was still being stubborn, Sweet Dream was also angered. She immediately said, I understand. If someone asks, I will definitely clearly convey your request to them. However, you better not have too much hope. All right. Bailey Hongzhuang faintly left a word and closed the door again. Sweet Dream stared at the tightly shut door in front of her and fell into a daze. The anger in her heart rose. She had come to deliver a piece of good news to Bailey Hongzhuang, but she had been rejected twice. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, You seem to have a problem with that girl? A person who looks down on me. No matter what she does, she always thinks that she's giving me charity. But obviously, I don't need it. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows, her ink-black phoenix eyes rippling with an indifferent light. If someone who lived on the upper floor told Sweet Dream the same thing at this moment, Sweet Dream would definitely nod and flatter them. But if it was a cultivator like her who lived on the second floor, Sweet Dream didn't believe it from the bottom of her heart. Because of this, the two of them were destined to hate each other. Di Beichin nodded slightly. She has always had such an attitude, but how could she understand my wife's abilities? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. If my judgment is correct, it won't be long before our embarrassing situation improves. She was unwilling to refine pills to sell because it was too much of a waste of time. Spirit stones were only a means for her to increase her cultivation. If she wasted too much time in order to earn spirit stones, the gains would not make up for the losses. My wife is so amazing. I must reward her well. Chapter 3050. Xiao Yihan originally didn't have any expectations for the healing medicine he bought. The price of these 10 portions was only comparable to 1 portion of the healing medicine prescribed by a doctor. Just by thinking about it, he knew how bad the effects of this healing medicine were. Unfortunately, he had no other choice but to buy the healing medicine in front of him. He had a faint guess in his heart. Logically speaking, even if the medicinal pills and healing medicine were always in high demand, they shouldn't have all been bought out. He felt that his opponent must have known that he had a battle today, so he purposely bought all the medicinal pills and healing medicine in order to prevent his injuries from recovering quickly. Since his opponent did it on purpose, he would naturally have discovered that there were people selling healing medicine on the second floor. However, he didn't buy them together, which showed that he also looked down on these healing medicine. Just by thinking about this, Xiao Yihan felt aggrieved. When had he ever fallen to such a state? There were still many wounds on his body that were bleeding. If the situation didn't improve tonight, he would lose to his opponent in terms of aura tomorrow. Going against his opponent in his best condition while injured would greatly increase the chances of failure. Xiao Yihan sighed, his gaze sinister and ruthless. His opponent tricked him, and he would definitely find a way to return the favor in the future. It was a pity that he had a lot of money to bet tomorrow. If he lost like this, it would be a huge loss. Xiao Yihan helplessly picked up the healing medicine that he just bought. He could only try his best now. Once he opened the bottle, Xiao Yihan smelled a faint fragrance that refreshed his heart. His gaze couldn't help but change a little. I didn't expect this healing medicine to be so ineffective, but it smells so good. His initial anger seemed to have dissipated after smelling this fragrance, and his mind returned to calmness. Xiao Yihan sprinkled the medicinal powder on his wound and was still considering how many bottles of this poorly effective healing medicine he should use in order to effectively heal his wound. However, the next scene stunned Xiao Yihan, because when this healing medicine was sprinkled on his wounds, the bleeding stopped immediately. Xiao Yihan looked at it again in disbelief. Normal healing medicine had the same effect, but this healing medicine was so cheap. It was enough to surprise him that it could achieve this effect. Vaguely, he felt that the speed of this healing medicine was much faster than the healing medicine he used before, but he didn't pay much attention to it just now, so he couldn't make a clear judgment. If Xiao Yihan was already very surprised by this point, then what happened next made him even more surprised. After stopping the bleeding, he found that his wound was slowly forming a scab. According to this situation, it wouldn't take long for his external wounds to completely heal. As for some of the bigger wounds, as long as he sprinkled more healing medicine, the wounds would slowly heal. This slowness was already considered fast in Xiao Yihan's eyes. This kind of speed, even if he used healing medicinal pills, he might not be able to catch up. At this moment, Xiao Yihan immediately realized that the healing medicine he bought was not useless. On the contrary, he had picked up a treasure. Chapter 3051. In this devil training tower, it was common for cultivators to get injured. It was because of this that the demand for healing pills and medicine always exceeded the supply. The alchemists and doctors who lived in the Devil Training Tower were a group of crafty old fellows. They could produce quite a lot of medicine every day, but they seemed to have discussed it beforehand and only took out a little each time. As a result, it was fine if the price of the medicine was high, but it was also often unavailable. This was what made people dissatisfied. 8 or 9 out of 10 cultivators who participated in the challenge tournament would be injured. Internal injuries could be healed through cultivation, but external injuries had to be treated with medicine. Otherwise, the continuous bleeding would affect the body's condition. Moreover, they were a group of rough men. How would they know how to bandage their own wounds to stop the bleeding? The only thing they could rely on was the healing pills. After discovering that the injuries on his body were gradually healing, Xiao Yihan looked at the healing pills in his hand and couldn't help but feel puzzled. Based on the effects of the healing pills, even if they were sold at the same price as the healing pills, it wouldn't be a big deal. 5 spirit stones per bottle. This price was simply giving it away for free. Moreover, according to the introduction of the woman at the counter, it seemed that the first 3 bottles of healing pills were free. Xiao Yihan's gaze gradually became sharp and bright. He wasn't a stupid person. On the contrary, he was able to reach his current reputation and position in the Devil Training Tower. This was enough to prove that he was a very smart person. In the beginning, he didn't understand this, but after thinking about it carefully, he immediately understood. The reason why the other party set the first 3 bottles free was to let people understand the effects of the pills. After all, the healing pills of a cultivator who lived on the 2nd floor weren't very convincing. If it was a normal person, they would choose to ignore it. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't buy any more healing pills, he definitely wouldn't put such pills in his eyes. Thinking about it, tomorrow's opponent had the same idea as him, so they ignored the healing pills on the 2nd floor and let him pick up a treasure. However, he still didn't understand one thing. The cultivator who sold the healing pills lived on the 2nd floor and didn't live in the alchemist and doctor area. This proved that he was neither an alchemist nor a doctor. Then why would he sell the healing pills? Could it be that he was so poor that he couldn't even afford a room, so he could only sell the medicine he had on him? When this possibility appeared in Xiao Yihan's mind, even he himself could not believe it. What kind of state would it be to be so poor? I wonder if that cultivator still has any more of this healing medicine. I will definitely go to the counter tomorrow and ask. Xiao Yihan made up his mind. If the other party still had more healing medicine, then he would definitely buy all of it for himself. It was impossible to have too many of such treasures. The next day, when Xiao Yihan's opponent, Lu Mingxiu, saw that Xiao Yihan had recovered to his original appearance on the stage, his face couldn't help but be filled with astonishment. According to his understanding, Xiao Yihan had already used up all of his healing pills, and all of the healing pills and healing pills that were sold yesterday had already been taken by him. How did Xiao Yihan heal? Lu Mingxiu was shocked. Could it be that Xiao Yihan had purposely guarded against him and told him false information? Chapter 3052. Xiao Yihan naturally noticed the change in Lu Mingxiu's expression and immediately made a judgment in his heart. It seemed that his guess was not wrong. The reason he was in such a situation yesterday was largely related to Lu Mingxiu. If he hadn't coincidentally bought the healing medicine from the cultivator on the 2nd floor, he would have really been tricked by Lu Mingxiu today. However, looking at Lu Mingxiu's shocked expression, he felt unusually happy. This proved that the heavens were still on his side. Lu Mingxiu had calculated everything, but he still missed one thing. In the end, Xiao Yihan was still the winner of this match. Looking at the unwilling Lu Mingxiu in front of him, Xiao Yihan only felt that his mood was extremely good. He proudly raised his eyebrows at Lu Mingxiu and said with a smile, "No matter how you think about it, you still missed one thing. Instead of using your brain on this kind of crooked path, I advise you to improve your own strength." Lu Mingxiu, who was already extremely unresigned, became even more furious after hearing Xiao Yihan's words. Every dog has its day. I only won once. Don't be too arrogant. The winner is the king, and the loser is the bandit. What can you do to me if I'm arrogant? Xiao Yihan sneered. Lu Mingxiu fiercely glared at Xiao Yihan, then turned and left the stage. After returning to his room, Lu Mingxiu couldn't take this lying down the more he thought about it. He clearly heard Xiao Yihan telling his friend that he had run out of healing medicine and could only go to the counter to buy more after the match. That was why he bought all the healing medicine one step ahead of time. This way, his chances of winning would increase a bit. He originally thought that he had tricked Xiao Yihan, but he didn't expect that he would be tricked by Xiao Yihan instead. This feeling made Lu Mingxiu extremely unhappy. After thinking about it, Lu Mingxiu still decided to go to the counter and ask. He had to find out whether he had fallen into Xiao Yihan's trap and wasted his efforts, or if Xiao Yihan had bought the healing medicine from somewhere else. In front of the counter. Did Xiao Yihan buy the healing medicine from you yesterday? Lu Mingxiu asked. When the woman at the counter heard Lu Mingxiu's words, her expression immediately became awkward. Young Master Lu, you've been in the Demon Training Tower for so long, so you should know the rules of the Demon Training Tower. We are not allowed to reveal information about other guests. I'm just asking you if you bought any healing medicine. It's not a secret, so why can't you answer me? Lu Mingxiu's expression was slightly cold, and his voice was filled with displeasure. His cold gaze seemed to say that as long as the woman in front of him did not answer, he would not let her have an easy time. The woman at the counter couldn't help but panic. She felt that she was really too unlucky. Yesterday, Xiao Yihan came here and made a big fuss. It was not easy to solve this problem. She did not expect Lu Mingxiu to come looking for trouble again today. She could not afford to offend either of these two people. If she told this news to Lu Mingxiu and Xiao Yihan found out, she would still be in trouble. This was really a dilemma. Young Master Lu, if I tell you, young Master Xiao will definitely blame me when he finds out, the woman said submissively. You mean that you're more afraid of Xiao Yihan than of me? Lu Mingxiu raised his eyebrows and asked. As soon as these words came out, the woman immediately realized that the situation was not good. She quickly waved her hand and said, No, that's not what I meant. Chapter 3053. The woman was shocked by Lu Mingxiu's fierceness, and the panic on her face became even more obvious. She was constantly weighing how to solve this problem. She knew the result of today's battle between Lu Mingxiu and Xiao Yihan. In terms of strength, Xiao Yihan was still slightly stronger. If she offended Xiao Yihan because of Lu Mingxiu, it would not be a wise move. Most importantly, even if she did not reveal Xiao Yihan's situation now, Xiao Yihan would not help her. Without any backing, she had no way to go against Lu Mingxiu at all. Just then, a voice suddenly sounded behind Lu Mingxiu, with a hint of mockery and sarcasm. Lu Mingxiu, even if you lost to me in the battle, there's no need to vent your emotions on a mere counter girl, right? Xiao Yihan smiled at Lu Mingxiu. He came to the counter because he wanted to know more about the cultivator who sold the healing medicine on the second floor. If he had the chance, he wanted to buy more healing medicine. In his opinion, his smooth victory today was partly due to that cultivator's contribution. He was very interested in getting to know him. When Lu Mingxiu turned around and saw Xiao Yihan, his face instantly darkened. Xiao Yihan, what I want to do is my business. I don't need you to judge. Ha! Xiao Yihan laughed mockingly. Looks like it was indeed your doing that I couldn't buy the healing medicine yesterday. I didn't expect your methods to become more and more despicable. Lu Mingxiu's gaze was sinister and vicious. His entire face had changed from rage to coldness. You just won today by luck. Don't be so proud. I'll take back what you took away soon. Xiao Yihan shrugged nonchalantly. Up to you. But it won't be easy for you to take it back with your little ability. Lu Mingxiu glared fiercely at Xiao Yihan. The viciousness and coldness in his eyes were enough to send chills down one's spine. However, the person standing opposite him was Xiao Yihan, so he did not feel anything at all. Xiao Yihan, Don't just talk about me. Didn't you purposely release fake news to make me do this? Lu Mingxiu sneered. Xiao Yihan usually thought that he was very righteous, but in reality, he still used some tricks behind the scenes. Then you're wrong. Just because you're like this doesn't mean I'm like this. Don't confuse people like you with me. Looking at Xiao Yihan's face that had a clear conscience, Lu Mingxiu's gaze gradually changed. Could it be that he had guessed wrong? The news that there was no healing medicine wasn't fake news that Xiao Yihan released, but that Xiao Yihan had solved the problem in other ways. However, Lu Mingxiu did not continue asking. He turned around and left. He had to get to the bottom of this matter. If there was someone who was secretly helping Lu Mingxiu, then he had to get to the bottom of it. After seeing Lu Mingxiu leave, Xiao Yihan looked at the woman behind the counter and said, "Help me investigate the cultivator who sold healing medicine on the second floor yesterday." The woman at the counter, who was originally in a difficult situation, finally managed to extricate herself from the predicament after seeing Xiao Yihan arrive. When she heard Xiao Yihan's question, her expression couldn't help but become troubled again. Chapter 3054. However, the expected rage did not come. Xiao Yihan's voice was as calm as ever. Right, I forgot about that. Then help me ask the counter on the second floor and see if that cultivator has any similar healing medicine for sale. If there is, contact me immediately. I want to buy it. Once he said that, the woman at the counter could not help but look at Xiao Yihan in surprise. Her eyes were filled with astonishment. She simply could not believe that Xiao Yihan would be so easy to talk to today. It was completely unlike his usual personality. Okay, I'll immediately contact the counter on the second floor. Xiao Yihan nodded, then placed a few spirit stones on the counter and said, "Your performance today was very good." With that, Xiao Yihan turned and left. The woman at the counter stared blankly at Xiao Yihan's back as he left. Her brain could not react for a moment, but after she reacted, her face could not help but blossom into a wide smile. Ever since Sweet Dream was rejected by Bailey Hongzhuang twice that day, her heart was filled with disgust towards Bailey Hongzhuang. She completely did not know where Bailey Hongzhuang's confidence came from. Could it be that she thought that the healing medicine she took out would be better than the healing medicine made by an alchemist? That was simply too laughable. She only went to specially remind Bailey Hongzhuang, but Bailey Hongzhuang did not notice her good intentions at all. Xiao Yihan was not a newcomer to the Devil Training Tower. If Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine did not have a good effect or affected Xiao Yihan in any way, then the unlucky one would be Bailey Hongzhuang. Just thinking about Bailey Hongzhuang's confident appearance made her angry, 10 times more. Simply a fool's dream. She wanted to see just who would come to buy Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine. Just as Sweet Dream was dreaming about this matter, suddenly, a message came from the 15th floor. Xiao Yihan asked if there were any more healing medicine. He wanted to buy it. When Sweet Dream heard this, her first reaction was that she had misheard. This was simply impossible. Are you sure? Does young master Xiao really want to buy that healing medicine? No, young master Xiao told me personally. Judging from the situation, the healing medicine you sold seems to be quite effective. Quickly help me ask that cultivator if he has any more healing medicine. Since young master Xiao is in a good mood today, I will give him a reply as soon as possible. Sweet Dream stared at the woman in front of her in a daze. She really doubted that all of this was real. Unfortunately, when she pinched her arm, it really did hurt. All of this was actually real. Sweet Dream, what are you thinking about? Are there no more healing medicines for sale? Hearing this, Sweet Dream finally reacted. She shook her head and said, "That's not it. It's just that the price has changed." What changes? That cultivator said that if someone wanted to buy this healing medicine again, the price would have to be increased by 10 times. Sweet Dream's face was a little embarrassed. She really didn't expect that there would be a day when she would pass on these words. 10 times? Sweet Dream nodded. She said so. Isn't this sudden tenfold price a little too high? Do you want to go and ask again? The woman had a difficult expression. Yesterday, a bottle of healing medicine was only 5 spirit stones. Now it had become 50 spirit stones. She felt that Xiao Han would most likely not agree. Chapter 3055. Yesterday, when I gave the spirit stones to that cultivator, she said that directly. Judging from her attitude, I don't think there's any possibility of bargaining. Sweet Dream recalled Bailey Hongzhuang's confident look. It was as if she had no intention of changing the price at all. In fact, until now, she still found it hard to believe that Bailey Hongzhuang was right. Xiao Yihan really went back and forth to buy healing medicine. This was too strange. There were still healing pills and medicine sold in the alchemist and doctor area today, but Xiao Yihan specially came to buy Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine. Could it really be because Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine was very effective? Sweet Dream, help me ask again, the woman said. Why don't we go together? Okay. Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichen had just returned from the arena area when they saw 2 figures standing in front of their door from afar. It seemed that they had been waiting for a while. Sweet Dream's heart was very conflicted. She had clearly shown her resolute attitude in front of Bailey Hongzhuang yesterday. Wasn't coming over today equivalent to slapping her own face? What's the matter? At this moment, a familiar voice sounded from behind Sweet Dream. Sweet Dream couldn't help but be startled and quickly turn her head. As expected, she saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichen behind her. Her expression immediately became a little awkward. Young Master D, it's like this. I'm the receptionist on the 15th floor. Yesterday, my customer bought your healing medicine. He wants to buy some more today, so he asked me to ask if there's any left. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, her calm face not showing any surprise. Yes, but you should know the price. How much do you want? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. She had already guessed that no matter who saw the effect of her healing medicine, they would be very interested in buying it back. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was full of confidence, and the smile in his eyes deepened. His wife's medical skills were really amazing. It had only been a short day, and the other party had already come knocking on their door. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't have any intention of negotiating the price, Sweet Dream couldn't help but look at the receptionist. She had already guessed this. Young Master D, I came here to ask if you can lower the price a little. Yesterday, you sold a bottle of healing medicine for 5 spirit stones, and today, it's 50 spirit stones. Isn't this asking for a sky-high price? The woman couldn't help but ask. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the woman indifferently. Let me ask, is there any healing medicine that only costs 5 spirit stones in the entire Devil Training Pagoda? As soon as these words were spoken, the woman at the counter couldn't help but be stunned. To be honest, there really wasn't such a thing. If I didn't live on the 2nd floor, no one would believe what I took out, and I wouldn't sell it at such a price. However, that's only the first batch. The current price is 50 spirit stones. If you can accept it, then buy it. If you can't, then forget it. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's unyielding attitude, the woman couldn't help but frown. Young Master D, from what I know, the price of this healing medicine is usually around 30 to 40 spirit stones. Isn't 50 spirit stones a little too much? Chapter 3056. What's wrong with me setting the price of my things? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Didn't Sweet Dream say that the buyer yesterday was very rich? Why can't he accept this price? She was very confident in the healing medicine she made and believed that as long as the other party personally experienced the effects of the healing medicine, they would definitely not think that the price was too expensive. However, she did not expect that the other party would actually find someone to bargain today. In that case, the other party was not some rich person. It was not a wise move for them to buy all the healing medicine in one go. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the woman at the counter could not help but be stunned. She originally thought that after her negotiation, the other party should have no problem lowering the price, but she did not expect the other party's attitude to be so unyielding. Instead, she questioned Xiao Yihan's financial ability. At this moment, she finally understood why Sweet Dream was unwilling to discuss the price with Bailey Hongzhuang. In fact, she was also very unwilling. I haven't told him the price yet. I just came to ask for your opinion. If you can't lower the price, I believe that young Master Xiao will not accept it. Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. It was not the other party who felt that it was expensive, but the two women in front of her felt that it was expensive. If he won't accept it, then so be it. My price is set here. If he can't accept it, then don't buy it. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice became cold. If there's nothing else, I'm going to enter the house. The woman at the counter and Sweet Dream looked at each other, both of them feeling helpless. Ignoring the two, Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichun directly walked into the house, and the door was once again mercilessly closed. Bang! The woman at the counter and Sweet Dream stared blankly at the tightly closed door in front of them, their expressions revealing a bit of annoyance. Sweet Dream, didn't you say that this guy is very short on money? Then why didn't he do the business when there was a chance? The woman at the counter could not understand. Basically, all the cultivators who lived on the second floor were people who were not rich. Logically speaking, with this kind of opportunity to earn spirit stones, they should not reject it. Sweet Dream shook her head. Her expression was filled with a bit of helplessness. They did act like they were very short on money, but I don't know why his attitude is so unyielding on this matter. It seems that it is impossible to get him to lower the price. You should just tell young Master Xiao the price. Young Master Xiao has no choice but to accept it. This guy is so arrogant, he should be disappointed. The woman at the counter nodded. We can only do this now. I just hope that young Master Xiao won't be angry with me. Sweet Dream patted the shoulder of the woman behind the counter and expressed some sympathy for her. The higher one worked on the higher floor, the less one dared to offend people. In comparison, her work at the counter on the second floor was much easier, but the pay was correspondingly much lower. 10 times? After hearing the counters that? S writes sweets, SS's. S with the is that. Sweets with ye. TTSSS. SSSS. SS Sweets SS. Chapter 3057. If it had been the same price as before, Xiao Yihan would have thought that there was a conspiracy behind it. There must be a reason behind it. No one would complain about having too much money, not to mention that the item itself was worth more than 5 spirit stones. He now understood that the other party must have felt that the price of the healing medicine was far more than 5 spirit stones. Unfortunately, it was impossible to sell on the second floor, so they could only think of such a method. Since the lady at the counter was unwilling to lower the price even after bargaining, it could be seen that the other party was also a proud person. In other words, the other party was very confident in the healing medicine. However, he also felt that the healing medicine's effect was not excessive to ask for such a price. Even if it was a little higher, it would not be excessive to ask for the same price as the healing pill. The other party did not ask for an exorbitant price, but chose the middle price between the healing pill and the healing medicine. This proved that the other party was also a straightforward person, and he was somewhat interested in the seller. The lady at the counter carefully sized up Xiao Yihan. She originally thought that Xiao Yihan would be very angry after hearing this news, but she did not expect Xiao Yihan to only fall into silence, which made her a little confused. Go and tell the other party that I accept this price. Also, tell her that if she is willing, I am very happy to be friends with her, Xiao Yihan said with a smile. This kind of price was not a problem for him at all. Moreover, just the bet that she won from Lu Mingshu today was already an extremely high price. Seeing that Xiao Yihan agreed without hesitation, the lady at the counter could not help but be stunned. She stared at the former in a daze, wondering if she had heard wrongly. Xiao Yihan actually did not refuse. The price suddenly increased by 10 times, and he actually accepted it so easily. For a moment, the lady at the counter could not understand. Her mind could not help but recall Bailey Hongzhuang's arrogant and unyielding appearance. Could it be that she had made a mistake? Young Master Xiao, how many portions do you need? The lady at the counter asked slowly. Xiao Yihan thought for a moment and said, let's buy 50 portions first. Once these words came out, the lady was stunned again. 50 portions, that would be 2,500 spirit stones. Xiao Yihan was actually so generous for such a big business deal. Most importantly, was the healing medicine's effect so good? Was it worth Xiao Yihan buying so many at once? However, the lady at the counter only thought about it in her heart and did not dare to ask at all. Okay, I'll go now. When Sweet Dream saw the woman at the counter come down again, a trace of doubt appeared on her face. She hurriedly asked, what did young Master Xiao say? Young Master Xiao said that he wanted to buy 50 sets of healing medicine. The woman at the counter said awkwardly. Sweet Dream couldn't help but be stunned when she heard this. She asked in astonishment, what did you say? Sweet Dream, I think we might have made a mistake. Although young Master Xiao was surprised when he heard the price, he immediately accepted it. In my opinion, I'm afraid that the effect of the healing medicine is really very good. Otherwise, young Master Xiao wouldn't have agreed. The woman at the counter understood at this moment. Xiao Yihan usually bought many things from her, so she had a certain understanding of Xiao Yihan's personality. At least, Xiao Yihan had never bought so many healing medicines at once when he bought them from other pharmacists and doctors. Chapter 3058. After getting this result, Sweet Dream's mood was also extremely complicated. She suddenly couldn't understand Bailey Hongzhuang. Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang was clearly a poor person, and no one thought that he could take out anything good. So later, when Bailey Hongzhuang was unusually confident, she only wanted to ridicule him. Now that she got Xiao Yihan's answer, she carefully thought about what happened before and felt that perhaps she was biased against Bailey Hongzhuang, causing her to make the wrong judgment. However, Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't a doctor at all. Could it be that young Master Xiao is in a good mood after winning the competition today, so he did this on purpose? Sweet Dream couldn't help but ask. The woman at the counter thought for a moment, then shook her head and said, it shouldn't be. Even if young Master Xiao is in a good mood, he wouldn't waste such a large amount of spirit stones. However, young Master Xiao did reward me with some spirit stones today. Let's not think about this for now. Help me buy 50 portions of healing medicine from young Master D. Hearing this, Sweet Dream's face revealed a very difficult expression. Everything that happened today was really making her more embarrassed than the last time. When Bailey Hongzhuang heard that Xiao Yihan wanted to buy 50 portions of healing medicine at once, her eyes flashed with a touch of surprise. It seemed that what Sweet Dream said before was true. This Xiao Yihan was indeed a generous person. 2,500 spirit stones. After deducting the high processing fee charged by the Demon Training Tower, she still had 1,500 spirit stones left. This was enough for them to cultivate for a while. I know. I'll leave it to you tomorrow. Bailey Hongzhuang left a faint sentence and didn't say anything else. Sweet Dream also tactfully left. Beichun, it seems that we don't have to worry about pills for cultivation for a while. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes curved as she smiled at Di Beichun. Di Beichun gave a thumbs up. My wife has always been the best. Beichun, actually, I have an idea. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Di Beichun with hesitation in her eyes. Noticing the change in Bailey Hongzhuang's expression, Di Beichun's eyes also showed a trace of seriousness. He immediately pulled Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and let her sit on his lap. His hands circled around Bailey Hongzhuang's slender waist as he said, what decision did my darling wife make? Tell me, I'll help you judge. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. She really felt very good to be with Di Beichun like this. Do you think we can completely trust Xiren and the others? Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly with some hesitation, as if she was considering her words. My wife, there's no need to have any misgivings between us. You just have to tell me your thoughts. Di Beichen's gaze was gentle and doting as he kneaded Bailey Hongzhuang's small hand and smiled. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I think the effects of cultivation in the oceanic world are very good. The speed of cultivation is also relatively fast. Xiren and Yingying don't have a chance to fight right now. If they can also come to the oceanic world and cultivate with us, the speed of their cultivation should be much faster. However, the secret of the Chaos Ring. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen halfway through her words. She believed that Di Beichen already understood her meaning. Chapter 3059. In terms of trust, Di Beichun had absolute trust in Xiren and Shangwan Yingying. They had been friends since childhood, and this time Xiren and Shangwan Yingying had specially come to Penglai Island for him. Although part of the reason was that they wanted to come here to gain experience, Di Beichun knew very well that if it wasn't for his physique, Xiren and Shangwan Yingying wouldn't have to take such a big risk. They could have waited until their cultivation had reached the 5th level of the Purple Realm before coming here. Then they wouldn't have needed to hide here and hide, afraid that someone would find out about their cultivation. He had also thought about the problem that Bailey Hongzhuang had mentioned. If when Xiren and Shangwan Yingying could improve together with them, that would be the best. However, the more he understood the magic of the Chaos Ring, the more he understood how tempting the Chaos Ring was to cultivators. The greed of human nature, no one could deny it. Even if he believed that when Xiren and Shangwan Yingying weren't that kind of people, he was still selfish when it came to Hongzhuang. He didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to take any risks because she was the most precious treasure in his heart. Bailey Hongzhuang looked deeply at Di Beichen. In fact, she also understood Di Beichen's thoughts. With the brotherhood between Di Beichen and Wen Xiren, this problem was originally superfluous. She was even more clear that the reason why Di Beichen hadn't said this was because he was worried about her safety. However, she felt that when Xiren and Shangwan Yingying had treated them wholeheartedly, so they should be trustworthy. Beichen, I know you're worried about me. If the Chaos Ring was yours, you would have told them long ago. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Di Beichen. Her pitch-black phoenix eyes met with those deep eyes like the sea. In an instant, she saw into the other's heart. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen fell into silence. Indeed, if he was the one taking the risk, he would have already told Xiren. Looking at Di Beichen's expression, Bailey Hongzhuang understood everything. She turned around and sat on Di Beichen's lap, facing him. Her crystal-clear eyes were full of seriousness. Beichen, I think sometimes I need to take the first step to gain true friendship and trust. What do you think? Di Beichen's dark eyes flickered with starry light, as if they were filled with endless hope, but they made Di Beichen's heart tremble. I haven't known Yingying and Xiren for a long time, but we both care about the same person, and that is you. I believe that this is a bet that I won't lose, so I want to give it a try. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice gradually became more and more certain. In reality, she had already made her decision when she had first mentioned her plan. Di Beichen looked deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang. His large hand held Bailey Hongzhuang's small hand tightly as he said in a deep voice, "My wife, you don't have to do this for me. I understand. Perhaps I'm being greedy. I also want to be part of a friendship like yours." Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a radiant smile. She had kept this secret for many years. Now, even though her cultivation could not be considered extremely powerful, she still had the ability to protect herself. Even if someone wanted to snatch her Chaos Ring away, it would not be an easy task. Chapter 3060. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang gave Sweet Dream the 50 sets of healing medicine that she had made. Although 50 sets of healing medicine was a lot, with Bailey Hongzhuang's ability, it didn't take long to make them. Moreover, with Xiao He and Xiao Bai helping out, the speed was much faster. Sweet Dream looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in front of her. and her thoughts were extremely complicated. Especially after seeing the coldness on Bailey Hongzhuang's face, she felt even more upset. She still remembered that when she saw Bailey Hongzhuang before, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't treat her like this. However, it seemed that her recent actions had really offended Bailey Hongzhuang. Every time she saw Bailey Hongzhuang, she could feel the coldness on Bailey Hongzhuang's face become thicker. Now, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't even want to look at her. When she first saw Bailey Hongzhuang, Sweet Dream had a good impression of this handsome man in front of her. Later, when she found out that Bailey Hongzhuang was just a poor ghost, Sweet Dream's behavior was so mocking, because she felt very disappointed. Now, looking at the spirit stones that Bailey Hongzhuang earned from selling the healing medicine, she felt that the situation seemed to be different from what she had imagined. 50 sets of healing medicine, and Bailey Hongzhuang took them out just like that. Sweet Dream had a faint guess in her mind. Could Bailey Hongzhuang be a doctor? After all, very few cultivators would bring so many healing medicine at once, let alone sell them here. It wasn't that she hadn't seen some strange alchemists or doctors. Their actions were often incomprehensible to ordinary people. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang was one of them? If that was really the case, then she really misjudged him. Bailey Hongzhuang saw Sweet Dream staring at her blankly and couldn't help coughing twice to remind her. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's coughing, Sweet Dream returned to her senses and blushed. Young Master D, each of these 50 sets of healing pills is priced at 50 spirit stones, so it's a total of 2,500 spirit stones. After deducting the handling fee, there's still 1,500 spirit stones left. The spirit stones are all here. Take a look and see if they are correct. Bailey Hongzhuang took the Qinquan pouch from Sweet Dream's hands and glanced at it. After confirming that it was enough, she nodded and said, "I'll have to trouble you." Ever since she came to Penglai Island, Bailey Hongzhuang had never received so many spiritual stones. Thinking that she could cultivate well without worrying about the consumption of spiritual stones, Bailey Hongzhuang was in a very good mood. Young Master D, seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's departing figure, Sweet Dream couldn't help but call out. Bailey Hongzhuang turned around with a trace of surprise in her black eyes. "Is there something else?" Sweet Dream was stunned, and the embarrassment on her face became even more intense. She couldn't help but say, "No, nothing." Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang frowned, and the doubt in her eyes deepened. Then she left. Today, Sweet Dream was acting strangely. She couldn't understand what was going on. "Master, do you think Sweet Dream likes you?" Not long after she left, Xiao Hei's gossipy heart was already ignited. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand. "That's impossible. What kind of person have the women in the Demon Training Tower not seen? My current appearance can't be considered very handsome, let alone a poor ghost." Chapter 3061. Bailey Hongzhuang reached out and flicked Xiao Hei's forehead. "I didn't expect you to be so concerned about this kind of thing." Xiao Hei chuckled. "Aren't I just concerned about Master? Although that Sweet Dream is usually quite annoying, she's clearly concerned about Master. Maybe she's interested in Beichun or Wenziren. A fake man like me shouldn't have that kind of charm." Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. She was currently disguised as a man. Although she thought that her disguise was quite good and that no one would discover that she was a woman, she had never thought that she would be so charming. That's not necessarily true. Everyone has different tastes. Xiao Hei chuckled, then asked Xiao Bai, "What do you think?" "I don't know either." Xiao Bai shook her head, looking confused. "But I do think that Sweet Dream is a little strange today. Why are you thinking so much? We don't have anything to do with her." Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent. "It's just that Sweet Dream happened to be working as a counter on the second floor recently. After a few days, she'll move to a different floor and won't be seen anymore." When they returned to the house, Bailey Hongzhuang called Wenziren and Shangguan Yingying over. "Hongzhuang, why did you call us over?" Shangguan Yingying's face was rippling with a faint smile. "Ziren and I are preparing to head to the arena area. Today was the day that she and Ziren were going to the arena area. When she first went to the arena area, she was very unaccustomed to it. But now, she was familiar with it. Going there again was a walk in the park. Of course, even so, she didn't like the arena area at all. Ying, don't go to the arena area for the time being. Bailey Hongzhuang spoke up. Shangwan Ying was a little surprised. Based on their current situation, their main source of spirit stones was still the bedding in the arena area. I sold some healing medicine today, and just so happened to earn some spirit stones. It's enough for us to use for a while. Bailey Hongzhuang winked, her eyes revealing a hint of playfulness. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Shangwan Ying and Wenziren's faces filled with curiosity. How much did you earn from selling healing medicine? A total of 2,500 spirit stones. It's not too much. After we got it, we're only left with 1,500 spirit stones. But it's enough for us to use. Bailey Hongzhuang. 2,500 spirit stones? We've been in the arena area for so long, and we've only earned 100 spirit stones a day. Hongzhuang, you've earned 1,500 spirit stones a day. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. The Devil Training Tower's demand for healing medicine is quite high, and the price is also quite high. Ziren gave Bailey Hongzhuang a thumbs up, and then said to Di Beichun, Beichun, you've really found a good wife. Her methods, her ability, tsk. Of course. Di Beichun reached out and hugged Bailey Hongzhuang, his face filled with pride. Seeing Di Beichun so proud, Ziren's face couldn't help but darken. You're really shameless. Di Beichun shrugged indifferently. I know you're envious. Ziren sneered and hugged Shangwan Ying's shoulder. Ying, let's not lower ourselves to his level. Chapter 3062. With their current situation, if they didn't have to worry about using spirit stones and could focus on cultivation, it wouldn't take long for them to break through to the 4th level of the Purple Realm. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun looked at each other, then shook their heads. No, we'll go somewhere else to cultivate today. Ziren and Shangwan Ying couldn't help but be startled when they heard this. Then where are we going to cultivate? Don't tell me we're going to the cultivation area. Even if we have a bit more spirit stones now, we can't afford to go to the cultivation area. Not to mention our level isn't high enough to go there. Ziren and Shangwan Ying couldn't think of any other place to cultivate on the entire demonic refining island apart from the cultivation area. I'm going to take you to a special place to cultivate, but this place is my secret. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes stared at Ziren and Shangwan Ying. Her voice was steady and certain. Ziren subconsciously looked at Di Beichun. Di Beichun also nodded, his expression solemn and serious. Seeing this, Shangwan Ying and Ziren both realized that the situation wasn't simple. Otherwise, Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't have such expressions. Ziren, Ying, I hope you can help Hongzhuang keep this secret. Di Beichun said in a deep voice. Bailey Hongzhuang's words had convinced him. This was a risky move, but if it succeeded, the 4 of them would be able to quickly improve together, and their friendship would become even stronger. Ziren and Shangwan Ying looked at each other. They already had some guesses in their minds. It seemed that this was related to Hongzhuang's secret. Even if they didn't know what kind of secret this was, with Ziren's understanding of Di Beichun, they knew that this secret was not simple. If that wasn't the case, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun would have already told them. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangwan Ying's serious expressions, Ziren and Shangwan Ying didn't really care about what the secret was. Just the fact that Bailey Hongzhuang was willing to take such a risk and tell them the secret was already something very meaningful. Hongzhuang, Di Beichun, don't worry, we'll definitely keep this secret. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Of course we'll believe you. The next second, Bailey Hongzhuang's mind moved, and Shangwan Ying and Wenziren were surprised to find that a mysterious black and white palace appeared in front of them. Magical colors flowed around the palace, revealing a mysterious and profound aura. The environment they were in was completely different from before. This caused Shangguan Yingying and Li Wuyo's eyes to widen, their faces filled with shock. This is, come with me. With that, Bailey Hongzhuang took the lead and walked into the palace. Xiren glanced at Di Beichun. Di Beichun raised his eyebrows and gestured for them to go in and take a look. When Xiren and Shangguan Yingying saw the various environments inside the palace, the shock in their hearts grew stronger and stronger. They never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would have a palace like this. This was just too amazing. This is a small world that I own, Bailey Hongzhuang said frankly. Shangguan Yingying stared blankly at the scene around her and said, "This is really too shocking. It's unbelievable." Chapter 3063. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, then shook her head. "We have to go to another small world to cultivate. There are demonic beasts there that can increase our battle prowess. Moreover, the time flow inside is 1/3 of the outside world. In other words, 3 days inside is equivalent to 1 day outside. This way, we'll have more time to cultivate." Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying's mouths were already agape, they were so shocked that they did not know what to say. "There's another small world other than this one." When Xiren said in astonishment, "That's right." When Xiren rubbed his head and paused for a moment before he said, "Wait a moment. Give me some time to digest this. Isn't this secret of yours a little too shocking? I've never seen such an abnormal thing." Xiren's eyes were filled with shock. He felt that all of this was inconceivable. If he did not clearly know that everything before his eyes was real, he would only feel that this was a dream. As the young sect master of the Cloud Sword sect, he had seen a lot of the world. Naturally, he knew that some cultivators would have some mysterious tools to help them cultivate. However, everything that Bailey Hongzhuang had displayed was simply too powerful. It was so powerful that he could not believe it at all. He believed that, not to mention him, even his knowledgeable old man would definitely be unable to believe it when he saw this scene. Di Beichun patted Xiren's shoulder and revealed an empathetic smile. When he first found out about this, his thoughts were exactly the same as Xiren's. From a certain point of view, the Chaos Ring possessing such an ability was already a heaven-defying existence. At this moment, Shangguan Yingying was completely dumbfounded. After she understood everything, she could not help but pull Bailey Hongzhuang's hand with a face full of nervousness. "Hongzhuang, are you crazy? If such a huge secret were to be leaked out, who knows how many cultivators would be envious of it? You could lose your life at any time. How dare you say it out loud?" Listening to Shangguan Yingying's words, the smile in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes couldn't help but deepen. She understood that she had won the bet. "Because I trust you." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. "Because I believe in you." Shangguan Yingying and Wen Xiren couldn't help but be startled by his words. Their hearts seemed to have been touched, and an indescribable warmth spread through them. When they looked at Bailey Hongzhuang again, their eyes were even brighter. If they had such a treasure, they probably wouldn't dare to tell others about it. It wasn't that he didn't trust her, but without enough trust, he definitely couldn't tell her. In this world, how many life and death friendships had collapsed because of a single treasure? In order to snatch the treasure, friends and brothers who had killed each other were simply too many to count. They never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang's trust in them would reach such a level. This made them feel flattered, and at the same time, they also felt a heavy sense of responsibility. When Bailey Hongzhuang decided to tell them this secret, Bailey Hongzhuang had already begun a huge gamble. She was gambling with her own life. In the face of such a huge gamble, how could they let Bailey Hongzhuang lose? Chapter 3064. Previously, when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying also treated Bailey Hongzhuang as a good friend, but that was mainly because of Di Beichun. Di Beichun was a good friend they had grown up with. As Di Beichen's wife, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangwan Yingying were naturally a group. However, compared to their absolute trust in Di Beichen, there was still a distance between them and Bailey Hongzhuang. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang was so unreserved towards them, it meant that Bailey Hongzhuang had enough trust and sincerity towards them. If they still did not treat Bailey Hongzhuang wholeheartedly, then they were not human. In the face of such a treasure, anyone would feel envious, but this thing belonged to their good friend. Whether it was when Ziren or Shangwan Yingying, they would not have any other thoughts, because they had to be worthy of that trust. Hongzhuang, thank you. Shangwan Yingying stared at Bailey Hongzhuang, her bright and clear eyes filled with sincerity and deep affection. At this time, she would not say anything else, but she was really grateful that Bailey Hongzhuang could trust her so much, because this trust was really precious. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled sweetly. She already understood Shangwan Yingying's meaning. Ziren did not say anything. He just glanced at Di Beichen, and Di Beichen also understood. After being brothers for so many years, many things could be understood with just a glance. No one said anything else about this matter, but at this moment, silence spoke louder than words. Everyone seemed to have enough tacit understanding. Now, let's go to the cultivation place. Di Beichen smiled faintly. The situation in front of him was undoubtedly the best situation he wanted to see. Hearing this, when Ziren and Shangwan Yingying looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangwan Yingying expectantly and said, "Take us to have a look. I also want to know what kind of good cultivation place it is." Soon, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three appeared in the ocean world together. Ziren and Shangwan Yingying looked at the vast sea in front of them. Their faces could not help but be filled with deep surprise. My God, this is your small world. I feel like I've returned to the days when I was drifting on the sea in front of Penglai Island. Ziren looked at everything in front of him. This environment was really not an ordinary kind of familiar environment. It is indeed very similar, but this is a different place, and the monster beasts here are different from the monster beasts we usually see at the bottom of the sea. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. After these days of exploration and cultivation in the ocean world with Di Beichen, they found that this place was the same as the desert world. The monster beasts here were different from the monster beasts outside. If the monster beasts in the desert world were said to be extremely strong, the monster beasts here could be said to be extremely slippery and good at fighting in groups. Fortunately, she, Di Beichen, and the three beasts had a large number of people and were responsible for facing the monster beasts. It was not easy to win. After almost every battle, they were exhausted, only feeling that all the strength in their bodies had been sucked out. Fortunately, they had spirit stones to help them quickly recover their cultivation, and the effect of using spirit stones to cultivate was also the best. Chapter 3065. Not the same. Shangwan Yingying was a little confused. Weren't there only so many species of demonic beasts in the entire Shengxian continent? Even in a small world, this situation should not be an exception. Looking at Shangwan Yingying's expression, Bailey Hongzhuang understood what Shangwan Yingying was thinking. She could not help but smile and said, "You will understand when you see it in a while. Beichen, I was wondering why your cultivation speed was so fast. It turns out that there is such a good place to cultivate." Ziren narrowed his eyes and looked at Di Beichen with ridicule. Previously, he had used some secret methods to raise his cultivation to this level in the Cloud Sword sect. He originally thought that he could show off in front of Di Beichen, but he did not expect that Di Beichen had also raised his cultivation to the same level, so he did not have the chance to be proud. Previously, he had always thought that Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation speed was too abnormal. Only now did he understand that they had such a heaven-defying divine tool. Cultivating here was equivalent to having 3 times the cultivation time. It couldn't get any better than that. Perhaps they would not discover anything in a short period of time, but after a long period of time, the gap would be very shocking. Di Beichen smiled faintly. "You have your methods, and I naturally have mine. However, now we are running together. Bailey Hongzhuang took out the spirit stones and said, "Now that everything is calm, let's cultivate first." Although the density of yuan qi here was not as high as in the demon training tower, using the spirit stones to cultivate and the time advantage here, overall, it was faster than cultivating in the demon training tower. Hearing this, Xiren nodded. Coincidentally, I have only been able to cultivate these days and have not had the chance to fight. I only feel that my fighting skills have become rusty. Now that there is such a good place, I am really looking forward to it. Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichun looked at each other with a faint smile in their eyes. The situation was exactly as they had expected. Not long after, Shangguan Yingying and when Xiren understood what Bailey Hongzhuang meant by different demonic beasts. Heavens, aren't the demonic beasts here too abnormal? This isn't a single demonic beast, it's a group of demonic beasts. How can these fellows be so despicable? Could it be that they only know how to gang up and don't have the courage to fight one-on-one? Another wave. This is going to kill me. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun, who were originally exhausted, heard the constant complaints of Wen Ran and Shangguan Yingying, and their hearts were somewhat balanced. In the past, when they were abused here, they felt very helpless. Now, there were two more guys who were being abused, especially when they warned Xiren and Shangguan Yingying. They didn't take it seriously. Now, they finally understood where the pain came from. After a fierce battle, Shangguan Yingying and Xiren lay on the boat, exhausted. They only felt that their bodies had been hollowed out, and they didn't have the slightest bit of strength. Di Beichun couldn't help but tease, "Xiren, you haven't fought for a long time. How does it feel to fight again?" Xiren gasped for breath. Looking at Di Beichun, who was obviously in a better state than him, he said, "You pervert, you still have the strength to fight. The demonic beasts here are simply unreasonable. The number of demonic beasts in this group is too shocking." However, hearing Xiren's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun couldn't help but be shocked. Chapter 3066. They had not been in the oceanic world for a long time. According to their previous situation, their endurance should be about the same as Xiren's. However, judging from the current situation, their endurance was clearly better than when Xiren's and Lichie's. Now Xiren's had no strength to move, but at least the two of them still had the strength to move. In that case, this was where they improved in the oceanic world. When they were in the desert world, the biggest improvement was their strength, but the oceanic world helped to improve their endurance. No matter which point it was, maybe this little improvement was nothing, but once it was used in battle, the effect of this improvement would immediately be reflected. Xiren saw that Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang were stunned after he said one sentence, and could not help but wonder, did I say something I shouldn't have said? Why do you two have such expressions? No. Di Beichun shook his head and said, "You reminded us of our improvement during this time. We thought that cultivating here would only give us a chance to fight, but now it seems that the biggest improvement is endurance." As soon as these words came out, it was Xiren's turn to be stunned. He then nodded. "Now that you mention it, it is indeed so. My old man often said that endurance is extremely important for a cultivator. Once the strength of the two cultivators is not much different, then endurance is the key to determining the outcome. It is just that it is not easy to improve endurance, and it is difficult to create such conditions. The situation in this oceanic world is completely possible. In that case, the value of Hongzhuang's small world is even more amazing." With that, Xiren turned his head to Bailey Hongzhuang and said, "Hongzhuang, I still have to thank you for giving us a good opportunity to improve, haha." Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. "Then I have to thank you for accompanying Di Beichun to Penglai Island." Xiren was slightly stunned, and the smile in his eyes deepened. He felt that Di Beichun had really found an excellent wife. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were being tortured by the demon beasts in the oceanic world, Lu Mingshu finally learned the truth. The lady at the counter was unwilling to tell him the truth about Xiao Yihan's situation, but it didn't mean that he didn't have other ways to find out. Especially after seeing that the healing medicine on the second floor was sold out, he already had a guess in his mind. Xiao Yihan, I didn't expect you to be so down and out right now. You actually have to buy healing medicine from the cultivators on the second floor. The way I see it, the reason why your injuries are getting better is because you used those 10 bottles of medicine together, right? How did it feel? Lu Mingxiu looked at Xiao Yihan mockingly. He originally thought that he had been tricked by Xiao Yihan and was in a bad mood. Now that he knew that he had not fallen into Xiao Yihan's trap, his mood became much better. Looking at Lu Mingxiu's happy expression, Xiao Yihan chuckled. What does it have to do with you how I recovered from my injuries? It's better than someone like you who plays tricks behind my back. Chapter 3067. Listening to Xiao Yihan's merciless mockery and sarcasm, Lu Mingxiu's face darkened even more. His entire face had turned black. The failure last time was truly a great humiliation. Now, every time Xiao Yihan found a reason to mock him, he was unable to refute. He was about to go crazy from anger. You, Xiao Yihan, have always flaunted your high standards and disdain to use ordinary things. Who would have thought that you would fall to such a state? Lu Mingxiu said coldly. Xiao Yihan smiled faintly and did not care about Lu Mingxiu's mockery. Speaking of which, I still have to thank you. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have found talent. Xiao Yihan was in a good mood today. He had just received 50 sets of healing medicine, and it was exactly the same as the ones he had bought before. Compared to the trouble of purchasing healing pills and medicines from the alchemist and doctor's area on a daily basis, he could only purchase a few bottles at most each time, and it also depended on whether the other party was interested and had the time to refine them. This cultivator on the second floor was simply too easy to talk to. He did not expect the other party to be so fast. He had only placed the order yesterday, and the other party had already brought all the healing medicine this morning. He liked this efficiency. This saved him a lot of time. He was even more determined to buy healing medicine from the cultivator on the second floor in the future. This way, he would not have to accommodate those alchemists and doctors and waste his time. Hearing Xiao Yihan's words, Lu Mingxiu could not help but frown. He did not understand what Xiao Yihan meant at all. However, Xiao Yihan did not intend to explain to Lu Mingxiu. He turned around and left with a smile on his face. He was really grateful to Lu Mingxiu. Otherwise, how could he have found such effective healing medicine? Looking at Xiao Yihan's disappearing figure, Lu Mingxiu frowned. His face was full of displeasure. He felt that Xiao Yihan's words must have some deeper meaning. Could it be that there was something special about the cultivator who sold healing medicine on the second floor? He really did not think that such a lowly person was worth paying attention to. However, Xiao Yihan's confident look made him very confused. Could it be that there was something he did not notice? Thinking of this, Lu Mingxiu felt that he had to figure out what the problem was. Otherwise, Xiao Yihan's attempt to cover up would only make things worse. Help me contact the cultivator selling healing medicine on the second floor. I want to see her. Lu Mingxiu walked to the front of the counter and ordered. The woman at the counter was slightly stunned. She did not understand why Lu Mingxiu was suddenly interested in Bailey Hongzhuang. However, she still said, "Young Master Lu, I can help you pass this request to the cultivator on the second floor." However, whether she agrees or not is not something I can control. Lu Mingxiu frowned slightly. If you tell her who I am, does she dare not come to see me? The woman at the counter couldn't help but think of Bailey Hongzhuang's arrogant appearance. She really felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was likely to refuse. After all, when she was discussing the price with Bailey Hongzhuang, she had mentioned Xiao Yihan's name. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did not care at all. In comparison, Xiao Yihan's name was even bigger than Lu Mingxiu's. However, the woman at the counter did not have the courage to say this out loud. Chapter 3068. Just as the woman at the counter was about to head to the second floor, Lu Mingshu suddenly said, "Wait, does Mr. Lu have any other orders? You don't need to do this. Continue with your work, but don't tell Xiao Yihan about this." Hearing this, the woman at the counter looked at Lu Mingshu in confusion, then nodded and said, "Yes." Lu Mingshu narrowed his eyes. In his opinion, the woman at the counter was obviously biased toward Xiao Yihan. If he relied on her, he might not be able to do this. It was better for him to go personally and find out what Xiao Yihan was up to. When Sweet Dream saw Lu Mingshu standing in front of her, she couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. With Lu Mingshu's status, it was definitely impossible to see him on the second floor. But what was he doing here at this moment? "Mr. Lu." Sweet Dream's face quickly revealed a smile. "I'm here to find out more about the cultivator selling healing medicine. I heard that Xiao Yihan bought healing medicine from him. I'm also very interested in this healing medicine." Sweet Dream understood that the reason why Lu Mingshu had appeared here was to buy healing medicine. In her heart, she was secretly amazed that Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine must be very effective, so it attracted people to come and buy it again. "I see." Sweet Dream smiled slightly. "Mr. Xiao did buy another 50 portions of healing medicine yesterday. How many portions do you want to buy?" Sweet Dream was completely unaware of the grudge between Lu Mingshu and Xiao Yihan. She only thought that Xiao Yihan felt that the healing medicine was very effective, so he told others. Hearing Sweet Dream's words, Lu Mingshu's eyes couldn't help but flash with a bright light. He didn't expect Xiao Yihan to actually buy another 50 sets of healing medicine from here. Could it be that the effects of the healing medicine were really that good? Is Xiao Yihan still buying the healing medicine at 5 spirit stones per portion? Lu Mingshu asked again. He remembered very clearly that when he saw the price before, he thought it was very funny. What good things could there be at such a low price? However, such a low price was nothing to Xiao Yihan. Perhaps Xiao Yihan was just in a good mood after winning the competition, so he gave it to this guy. Sweet Dream shook her head and said, "That's not the case. Each batch of healing medicine is sold for 50 spirit stones each." Hearing this, Lu Mingshu couldn't help but be taken aback. 50 spirit stones per serving? Is this the price Xiao Yihan offered, or what? This is the price set by the cultivator who sold it. 5 spirit stones per serving was the price she set when she first sold it. However, before young Master Xiao bought it for the second time, she had already raised the price to 50 spirit stones per serving. This price is much more expensive than ordinary healing medicine. I feel that the effect should be quite good. Otherwise, young Master Xiao would not have bought it again. If young Master Lu is not clear, why don't you ask young Master Xiao? That way, you will have an understanding. Lu Mingshu waved his hand. No need. Go and inform that cultivator that I want to see him. After receiving this news, Lu Mingshu suddenly came up with a plan. Chapter 3069. Listening to Lu Mingshu's words, Sweet Dream couldn't help but say awkwardly, "Young Master Lu, that cultivator said before that if anyone wants to buy healing medicine, just tell me. She will prepare the healing medicine the next day." After interacting with Bailey Hongzhuang during this period of time, she found that Bailey Hongzhuang clearly had no interest in meeting other people. Other than going to the arena area once every 2 days, Bailey Hongzhuang had been cultivating in her room all the time. She had no intention of getting to know anyone at all. Even knowing that Xiao Yihan wanted to buy her healing medicine, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't show any excitement. Lu Mingshu frowned. Sweet Dream's answer was exactly the same as the woman at the counter before. Was this cultivator so difficult to deal with that even his name didn't work? Go and contact her. Tell her that I want to discuss a big business with her. Let her talk with me face to face. Lu Mingshu wanted to see what kind of person she was. Besides, what he wanted to discuss was indeed a big business. It was just that this big business couldn't be known by others. I'll go and contact her right now, but I can't guarantee the result. Sweet Dream reminded again. Go. I believe she will definitely come. Lu Mingxu was full of confidence. All the cultivators who lived on the second floor were often short of money. Once they heard that there was a big business, they would definitely rush over impatiently. Sweet Dream came to Bailey Hongzhuang's door and knocked on the door, but found that no one answered. After knocking several times, there was no response, which made her puzzled. She clearly didn't see Bailey Hongzhuang leave the second floor today. If she wasn't in the room now, then where could she have gone? Young Master Lu, I just want to look for her, but there doesn't seem to be anyone in the room. Sweet Dream's face showed a touch of helplessness. How about I contact her when she comes back? Can I inform you then? Lu Mingxu's face instantly became ugly. He didn't think of this possibility. You mean she went to the arena area? Should be. All right, let me know when she's back. It was already the second day when Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three exited the oceanic world. After staying in the oceanic world for 3 days, when Xiren and Shanghuan Yingying had a better understanding of the oceanic world. In that case, we can continue to cultivate in the oceanic world in the future. The results of this cultivation are much better than staying in the house and cultivating bitterly, Xiren said slowly. Everything he had experienced in the past 3 days had made him feel very strange, and he increasingly felt that the effects of cultivating in the oceanic world were very good. Cultivating in this sealed magic training tower was really boring. Now, there was finally a place where he could breathe. Di Baichen nodded. As long as we have enough spirit stones, we can stay inside and cultivate. However, I have to come out and see if there are still people who want to buy healing medicine. After all, if I can't sell the healing medicine and earn enough spirit stones, then it won't be so good. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged her shoulders. Spirit stones were too important to them right now. Chapter 3070. As soon as she opened the door, Bailey Hongzhuang saw a note on the door. Sweet Dream had left a message asking her to go to the counter. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three couldn't help but look at each other. Maybe they had business again. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had a strange feeling in her heart. She felt that everything was not so simple. Xiao Yihan had just bought 50 sets of healing medicine, which was enough for him to use for a while. He wouldn't come back to buy it again. Moreover, with Xiao Yihan's status, he wouldn't be interested in advertising for her. If it were her, she would probably think that it was enough for her to know. There was no need for more people to know. Sweet Dream, are you looking for me? Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang coming out of her residence, Sweet Dream's eyes flashed with surprise. She didn't notice that Bailey Hongzhuang had come back from the arena area today. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang had been in the room all this time? Young Master Lu Mingxu for the 15th floor came to look for you today, but I went to your residence to look for you, but there was no response. Sweet Dream said tentatively. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. I was cultivating in seclusion today and didn't notice the movements outside. I'm like this when I'm focused on cultivation. You don't have to be surprised. I see. Sweet Dream then understood. Many cultivators didn't like to be disturbed when they were cultivating, so they would use Yuan Qi to seal their ears so that they couldn't hear the voices of others. Young Master D, if you want to cultivate without being disturbed in the future, you can hang a Do Not Disturb sign in front of the door. Then we won't disturb you. I know. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly. You said Lu Mingxu was looking for me? I don't seem to know him. He came after hearing the news of the healing medicine. I told him that if he needed to buy healing medicine, he could tell me directly. However, he said that he wanted to discuss a big business with you and asked me to contact you to talk to him face to face. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. She didn't know why, but she sensed a conspiracy in this situation. Sweet Dream, do you know what his relationship with Xiao Yihan is like? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Sweet Dream was slightly stunned. Then she shook her head. I only know that young Master Lu knows about you because of young Master Xiao, but I don't know about the relationship between the two of them. Can you do me a favor and find out about the relationship between the two of them? Bailey Hongzhuang took out a few spirit stones and placed them on the counter. Young Master D, This is just a small favor. I'll find out after asking around. You don't have to be so polite. Of course. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Then wait for me for a moment. I'll go to the counter on the 15th floor to ask, and I'll tell you the result. All right. After Sweet Dream left, Xiaobai couldn't help but ask, Master, don't you plan to meet Lu Mingxiu personally? Let's see if he's a friend or a foe before making a decision. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said, You think that Lu Mingxiu is a foe and not a friend? Xiao Hei quickly asked, If he's only here to buy healing medicine, then no matter how big the business is, he can just tell Sweet Dream the quantity. However, he must talk to me personally. There are some problems with this. Xiao Yihan bought medicinal pills for me twice, but he didn't ask to see me either. Chapter 3071. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes flickered with wisdom. Although they had not had much contact with other people after coming to Demon Refining Island, she had always understood the twists and turns of people's hearts. Then why does Lu Mingxiu want to see you? Xiao Hei was puzzled. I don't understand. If I'm not wrong, there should be a conflict between Lu Mingxiu and Xiao Yihan. Lu Mingxiu wants to find trouble with Xiao Yihan through me, a third party. Other than that, there shouldn't be any other reasonable explanation. Although it was only a guess, Bailey Hongzhuang was very certain that it was very likely the truth. But Master, we're not considered friends with Xiao Yihan. Don't you want to know more about this big deal? Xiao Hei blinked. To them, the most important thing was to earn spirit stones. As for who they earned it from, they shouldn't care. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head and said, If my cultivation had reached the 5th level of the Purple Realm, then I wouldn't mind finding out what kind of deal this is. The other party comes from the upper echelons and is stronger than me. In addition, he insists on discussing a deal with me. If I don't agree, he will definitely fall out with me. This demon refining tower has never stopped cultivators from fighting. I don't want to put myself in a dangerous situation. She was very interested in spirit stones. It was just that she was not interested in spirit stones that brought trouble. In that case, this Lu Mingxiu is very dangerous. After Bailey Hongzhuang's explanation, Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai also understood. It was better for them to stay away from this kind of guy. Sweet Dream's speed was very fast, and it didn't take long for her to return. When she looked at Bailey Hongzhuang again, her face showed a trace of embarrassment. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang already understood the result. Young Master D, I've just received news that Young Master Lu and Young Master Xiao don't have a good relationship. 2 days ago, they had an arena battle, and Young Master Xiao won. And part of the reason why Young Master Xiao won was related to your healing medicine. As for why Young Master Lu came to look for you this time, I'm not sure. Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai looked at each other. They really admired their master more and more. She had actually guessed all of this. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and said, I know. I'll have to trouble you to tell that Young Master Lu that I'm not interested in this big business. According to the rules of the Devil Training Tower, you shouldn't have revealed my identity to him, right? Sweet Dream hurriedly waved her hand and said, That won't happen. We keep the identities of all the cultivators who sell things a secret. Unless you voluntarily announce your identity, we definitely won't reveal it. Even Young Master Xiao only knows that you are a cultivator on the 2nd floor, but he has no idea who you are. That's good. Only then did Bailey Hongzhuang feel more at ease. She had no interest in getting involved in the other party's battle. She only wanted to earn some spirit stones in peace. I'll have to trouble you. You might have to help me deal with some trouble. Sweet Dream's pretty face blushed and hurriedly said, No, this is what I should do. Chapter 3072. After Bailey Hongzhuang returned to the room, she looked at Deep Beichen and the other two who were quite expectant of her. She spread her hands and said, I'm sorry to disappoint you. He's not here to buy healing medicine. He might be here to cause trouble. so I refused. Hearing this, Di Beichen and the other two looked at each other with some doubts. We haven't offended anyone. Who would come to cause trouble for you? The opponent of young master, Xiao, who bought my healing medicine. Suddenly, Di Beichen and the other two understood. It's better to refuse this kind of thing directly. In our current situation, it's better for us to keep a low profile and cultivate. In half a month, we should be able to break through to the 4th level of the Purple Realm. Xiren said slowly. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly. Before breaking through to the 5th level of the Purple Realm, let's cultivate in peace. I'll think of another way to earn spirit stones. She believed that as long as the effect of her healing medicine was spread, there would be a lot of business soon. However, she valued the improvement of her strength more, so she didn't put all her focus on selling healing medicine. No, we'll do the same as before. Although it will waste some time, it will still be a steady improvement. Shangguan Yingying said, "What's the point of thinking so much? Anyway, we still have enough spirit stones. Let's go to the oceanic world first," Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang, who didn't care about it, Xiren and Shangguan Yingying felt a little embarrassed. If these spirit stones were only used to maintain Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's consumption, it would be able to last for a long time. However, with the addition of the two of them, the time would be shortened by a lot. However, whether it was Bailey Hongzhuang or Di Beichen, they had never cared about this, which made them even more touched. When Lu Mingxiu found out that Bailey Hongzhuang had refused to see him, he couldn't react for a moment. "You said she refused?" Lu Mingxiu raised his voice, clearly unable to accept this result. Sweet Dream nodded and said cautiously, "She said that she's only interested in selling healing medicines. Apart from that, she has no other skills. If Master Lu needs healing medicines, she'll welcome you with open arms. If it's any other business, I'm afraid she won't be able to help much." Lu Mingxiu's heart quivered when he heard this. The other party's words made him feel as if the other party had seen through him and even guessed his plans. This was not a good feeling. Does she know who I am? Even if we can't reach an agreement, she doesn't even want to see me. Isn't that a little too arrogant? After being rebuffed one after another, Lu Mingxiu couldn't help but get angry. It was one thing for Xiao Yihan to treat him like this, but the other party was just a cultivator who lived on the 2nd floor and dared to treat him like this. How hateful. Does he even know who I am? How dare he reject me? He's courting death. Sweet Dream was also frightened by Lu Mingxiu's sudden roar. She quickly said, "Young Master Lu, this. I can't do anything about it." "Pa!" Lu Mingxiu slapped the counter. "Since he dares to not give me face, I'll let him know the consequences of offending me. Doesn't he want to earn spirit stones by selling healing medicines? I'll make sure that he can't sell a single portion of his healing medicines." Sweet Dream panicked when she heard this and said, "Young Master Lu, I'm afraid this isn't very appropriate, right? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.